And we're live for episode 2 of the Off the Wall Hockey Show. We are less than a week away here from the start of the NHL season, and joined again by the great Steele from Steel Flyers as this show, and I am part of the Steel Flyers All Sports Network along with so many other great people. Perlo, Peyton on the radio, Joe Bort from Sports Fanatic News. We are all together here as part of the Steel Flyers All Sports Network. So you guys are definitely going to want to check out www.steelflyers.com for so much great sports content. Steel, great to have you here, obviously, as always, and we are ready to go. Just a few days now away from the start of the NHL season. How excited are you?
Oh, are we ready to play hockey? I can't wait for puck drop. I can't wait for puck drop. I can't wait for puck drop. Thanks for having me on, man. This is always great to be on here talking straight up hockey, especially with the best in the business right here. If you're not following John, then you really should be. Check out Off the Wall Hockey, always great content. Make sure that you check out the Black and Gold because the guy got it going on. If you're a Boston Bruins fan, got to check that out. So that the second episode just dropped earlier too, so you got to go check that out for sure. So, ready to go, man?
Oh, I'm always ready to go. This is going to be a great one tonight. Our last show before we actually have a season going on, but we've got so much to talk about today or tonight with everything going on around the league right now. And obviously the big story that came out today, COVID is finally impacting the NHL the same way that we've seen it impact all the other sports going on, whether it's NBA, MLB, NFL. Today, the Dallas Stars practice was canceled, and it came out that 6 players and 2 staff members have tested positive, and the Columbus Blue Jackets have 17 players. They're kind of watching. They're not official positives or anything like that yet,
Yeah.
but they held them out of practice, and they're just kind of keeping an eye on to see where that goes. Obviously, this is 2021. This is the world we live in now. But it's obviously tough to see Dallas is not going to be starting their season on time.
No, and then here's the other thing too. That's kind of a little bit of a bit of a corker too, where Hoboden has been having some immigration issues as well, and I don't believe he's as of yet has joined the team yet, has he?
No, Anton Hudobin is still having issues trying to get into the country, and once he does get in, he's going to have to have at least some sort of quarantine period before he can join the team and play. So there
And three
certainly would have,
negative tests. He'll
yeah,
have to have 3 negative tests.
they certainly would have been without him to start the season.
Yeah. I mean, look that is huge right there. I mean, for Dallas to because they already don't have Ben Bishop, and that's one of the things that we're going to get into as part of our big stories that we're going to talk about for today. But that right there, they're missing Ben Bishop. Okay, right off the bat, they're not going to get him potentially till the end of the season. And now with Hudobin having issues getting into the country, for one, and then having to go through quarantine and then going through protocol and all those other things just to even get on the ice. So, and then with Dallas announcing today that they've closed their facilities due to multiple positive tests of COVID. So I mean, even if he was here, they couldn't do anything anyway.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do about that? So yeah, that's going to have to be the unfortunately the lead story in that. Columbus, they're just watching, so they haven't closed anything as of yet, and they haven't officially made a statement or come out and said anything in Columbus.
Yep. Yes, that's where we're at. What happens there. In true social media fashion, everybody flipped out and overreacted to all this news today about COVID and what's going on in Dallas. And everyone was up in an uproar on Twitter this afternoon. But to be honest with you, I say get used to it, because this is going to happen multiple times throughout the season. This is something that
Agreed.
is going to be happening. This is the world we
Yeah.
live in now, and I think you're going to see it a lot more at the beginning of the season, and hopefully as the year goes along and we get deeper into it, things kind of quiet down on the COVID front, and it's not as big of a concern
Right.
all the time.
Right. Well,
But
I think. Yeah. Go ahead.
at least for the start of the season, I think this is something that we're going to see happen multiple times. And when we look at other sports, the NFL right now, the Cleveland Browns are about to play their first playoff game in almost 20 years, and they don't have their head coach because he tested positive, and they're not going to have their head coach. This is something that's affecting all sports and is going to continue affecting all sports, and they're just going to have to keep plugging along and manage their way through it.
Look, I think that what the NHL did when they did the bubble was basically they they created the template of how to do it in a bubble. Okay, and it was successful because the World Juniors followed the same format and they were successful. They did not. They had. I don't think they had a single positive test there for COVID at the World Juniors, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that. Don't hold me to that. Okay.
Germany had some when they got there, but once everyone was there, they didn't.
Okay, right. I was just going to say I knew Germany had quite a few players before they had gotten into the bubble, but for the most part, I was under the understanding that everybody once they got there, everything was good, and they did, and the NHL did the same thing when they did the playoffs and the round robin when they came back. Okay, so that basically set up the template for all the other sports, and now the NHL is going to have to kind of follow like what the NFL has been doing, because what the NFL has been doing is if you are sick or test positive, then you have to go on a list, quote
Yep.
unquote. Okay, and then you're not allowed to be around anybody, and then they do contact tracing, and if that's the case, then you might have to sit because you might have been exposed or whatever the case was. That happened to Ben Roethlisberger, where he was exposed to potentially to Vance McDonald, who did test positive for COVID, even though Ben didn't test positive. They still held him for 5 days in quarantine and whatever.
Yep.
Okay, so they're going to probably have to do some of the same things, especially in the NHL and especially with teams traveling. Look, I know they've limited the travel that they're going to do. So
Yes.
and they're going to play. They're going to go to a city and then they're going to play a couple games there, and then they're going to come back to a city and they're going to play a couple games. Okay, I mean that's the best case scenario that you could ask for. But I do agree. I think you're going to see bouts throughout the beginning of the year. And the other thing I think too is another major issue is the vaccine, where everybody was like, okay, well, we need to have a vaccine so we can have sports. Well, now there's a vaccine, so now as the vaccine gets to be more and more readily available, and more and more people get to have the vaccine, I think you're going to start to see more and more people come to the games or be allowed to come to the games, whatever the case is. At least that's what my hope is.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, as people, if anyone thought the NHL was going to go all season without having positive tests, you just get with the times. That's delusional. And you were not.
We're never going to get to a zero.
No, and you were never going to get. I mean, the players straight up were not going to do a bubble again. I personally don't think you're ever going to see a bubble like we saw with the NBA and the NHL last year again, because the players absolutely hated it, and I
Yeah.
don't think they'll ever agree to do something like that again.
Yeah. I think that was great though that they were able to get everybody to come together so that they could push on with the end of the season and get the Stanley Cup played and handed out and everything like that and get all the awards and everything. So I think it was great that the NHL, and I think they were, I mean, man, hats off to them, kudos to them, the big salute to them, whatever you want to call it, for doing that. And then all those players and all those weeks with zero positive tests. So they really did it right there, and that to me is impressive.
Yeah, no, the bubble absolutely worked, and it was a great idea, but you're never going to get the players to do that again, because
Right.
especially over the course of a full regular season, if you go to an NHL player and say, yeah, why don't you just move to this city and not see your family for 6 months, they're going to tell you they're going to tell you to go pound sand, and they don't want it. They'd
That's
rather
a good way.
it's the NFL season is going to be very much, or the NHL season is going to be very much like what the NFL season has been this year. The players are traveling, they're at home during the week. They're taking care of their families, and then they're going to work like everyone else. And there are going to be positive cases. There are going to be certain teams that get hit harder than others. And the same way that the NFL has kind of had to manage that and go around that, the NHL is going to have to do the same thing.
I hope they do a better job of scheduling and making teams available for other teams to play than what the NFL did.
Mm-hmm.
I think the NFL dropped the ball a little bit on how they handled major outbreaks with teams and how they, postponed things and stuff like that. The Denver Broncos played without a quarterback on their roster.
Yes.
Okay, and then what happened with the Pittsburgh Steelers with, okay, we're going to play a game today. No, now we're going to play it tomorrow. No, now we're going to play it tomorrow. No, now we're going to play it tomorrow, and they just keep kicking the can down the road. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
I hope that the NHL learned from that boo-boo,
Yeah.
and have a much better handle of things and much more flexibility with scheduling and things of that nature, so that you're not putting a team out there that's like, say, 80% call-ups
Mm-hmm.
against Tampa Bay, who's
Yeah.
got all their full starters in and they're ready to fly.
Yeah, one thing that I definitely didn't like about the NFL that I hope the NHL doesn't fall into the same trap is you need to treat each team and each player equally. Like what the problem with the NFL, or one of the biggest things that really ticked me off this
Wow,
season
great
was
point.
when the Baltimore Ravens didn't have Lamar Jackson, they just pushed that game and pushed that game until Lamar Jackson was going to be able to play. And
He
the
still didn't
NFL,
play, though.
yeah, but they kept trying to push it off and push it off, and they did not want Lamar Jackson missing time. But then when the Denver Broncos don't have a single quarterback on their roster, oh, you can go ahead and use a practice squad wide receiver as your quarterback. So they were treating the Ravens differently than the Broncos, and they were treating Lamar Jackson like he was more important than any other of the
Than the
not so high
Broncos.
profile players in the league. And that's something I don't want to see the NHL do. Whether it's Nathan McKinnon or whether it's a fourth line guy, you need to treat these guys the same, and you need to treat the teams the same, whether they're the Tampa Bay Lightning or whether they're the Detroit Red Wings. Everyone needs to be treated the same.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, and I couldn't agree with you more. That's why I said I really hope that the NHL has learned the lesson from the NFL, and how to handle things as they go moving forward. Okay, if you have to close down a facility or whatever the case is, and if you have to reschedule games, okay, I'm okay with that. Okay, I don't have a problem with that. But if that's what you're going to do, then do it.
Mm-hmm.
Come out and say, look, we're going to reschedule this game for a week out.
Mm-hmm.
Don't even mess around. Don't even say, oh, well, we'll do it tomorrow, and then come out, in 6 hours and go, well, we're going to have to do it the next day.
Yeah.
Just say, look, we'll reschedule this for next Friday. And then that way there's nothing to worry about. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? You can just rearrange the schedule and switch things around. And I mean, you're going to have to be flexible like that with the schedule if that's how they're going to expect to handle things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of things that the NHL can learn from the NFL and even MLB, and how Major League Baseball got their season off and they're done now, obviously. But there's certainly a lot of things that they can learn from these other leagues. And there's also things that they can learn on what not to do from these other leagues.
Right.
And hopefully they handle it as well as possible. And I mean, that it's a fact of life now. It's something that's going to happen. It's more about how you handle it and making sure that you handle it the right way, in my opinion.
I agree with you 100%. And I think that not only is this going to have an impact on the game of hockey, but I think that one of the other things that's going to have an impact on the game of hockey is the fact that we're missing some very key players at the beginning of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And with Jonathan Toews being out, with Pasternak being out, Ben Bishop we talked about earlier, we touched on.
Yep.
Sagan we touched about. Boychuk now going to be missing. Steen now, Corey Crawford. I mean, the list is just, Lundqvist.
There's a lot of players.
It's
There's
starting to
big
get
name players too.
exactly. So look, we know for one that not only is COVID going to have an impact, but when you look at the list of these players that are not going to be starting the season off with
Or
their
not playing at
respective
all
teams,
in some
or
cases.
right, or not even playing at all, and we didn't even, hey, let's start off with Woody, because we have our power rankings, right? And I'll tell you what, I tried to not take these guys into considerations when I did the power rankings.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I just wanted to try and do a generic thing.
Yep.
Okay, so I know I'm jumping the gun here a little bit, but what do you think is going to be the major impact with these players not being? I mean, especially like with Dallas missing a couple of players, especially their goalies.
Yeah.
Okay, what's it going to be like now with the Washington Capitals now going to be without Lundqvist? Okay, what now? What? Okay, Jonathan Tay is going to be missing some time. Okay, Boychuk is going to probably miss what? The whole
Boychuk's retired. He will not
retired,
play
right?
again.
Okay, so there you go. That's I really think Lundqvist is probably going to retire as well too. I
I
mean,
think he's headed that way. He had actually some more news. He had open heart surgery today, and by all accounts, it did go very well. But obviously, he's got a major heart issue that he's been playing with his whole career, apparently, but they just found it now, and he did have surgery today. But
yeah,
that it would be. I mean, at his age, I don't know if it's worth the risk even trying to come back.
well, especially when you have open heart surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because when they crack you open like that, and now
Yep.
I don't know if they actually cracked him open. If they actually saw through your sternum and everything and they actually crack you open, that is a much more uh, lengthy recovery time because of how they have to get at the areas and stuff like that. If they're able to come down through the top,
Mm-hmm.
because he had his aortic valve replaced.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I've had a relative who had that done, and that was a complete open heart surgery. Now, that was many moons ago. Right, but
Yep.
that was what the procedure was, where there was a full open heart surgery and things like that. So I think that's what he said he did,
Mm-hmm.
and from everything that we've heard so far is that everything went well. So I mean, prayers up to the king, that hopefully he gets well and is able to come back and be with his family.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay, because I don't think
absolutely.
he's coming back to play hockey.
Yeah, I mean he didn't officially say that he was done. He wanted to get through the surgery and talk with doctors and specialists and all of that before making any sort of final decision. But I would be surprised if we see him in an NHL game again. I would love to see it. I mean, he's one of the
Yeah.
greatest goaltenders of all time, and it would be fantastic to see. I would just be personally surprised if we see him play another NHL game.
I'm going to have to agree with you 100% on that, especially with open heart surgery, especially with something like with his age. You know what I mean? He, it's one of those things. If
Yep.
he's going to try and do it, then okay, cool. If not, then look, it's been a heck of a ride, and thanks for the memories, and appreciate all the games, and it's been fun going up against you and being a rivalry to you, and and when you go up against the best, I mean, they don't call you the king for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And when you go up against the best like that, I mean, okay. Like I said, they don't call him the king for nothing. So,
Yeah.
what do you think is going to be? Speaking of goalies, Dallas is also. I mean, we touched on it at the top of the show, but Dallas is missing Ben Bishop for the whole season,
Yes.
right? Or they're
Uh,
saying maybe
he
April,
may come back towards the beginning of April, but that's a
right?
good chunk of the season. That's a
Right.
good chunk of the season that he's going to be out.
Right. And then we also talked about the fact that Anton Hudobin has not been able to get back in the country.
Mm-hmm.
you know and if that's going to be the case, then we're being, let's see, we're less than a week away now. If he has to follow any kind of protocols, he's not going to start the first, maybe, what, 2 or 3 games of the season.
Well, with Dallas now not starting until the 19th, that gives them a little bit more of a buffer time here. Um, But it's going to be the Jake Ottinger show if neither. I mean, we know Bishop's
Pretty
out,
much.
and if Hudobin can't get into the country and pass these protocols quick enough, they're going to have to start the season with Jake Ottinger as their starting goaltender. Now, touching on the Bishop injury, I didn't think that was a big deal for Dallas because they had Hudobin and Ottinger,
Right.
and Hudobin proved in the playoffs that he can lead the team.
Agreed.
And Ottinger, I think, is a guy that is more than capable of being an NHL backup at this point. And he played fairly well in the limited time that we did see him last year. But now if Dallas is without Bishop, who we know they're without, and now Hudobin's having trouble getting into the country, if they have to start the season without either of them, you're looking at Ottinger as being your starting goaltender, and that's certainly going to affect the start of the season. But Dallas might, in a way, have caught a break here with their season start getting pushed back
Later.
because of these COVID cases, because
that's
going to give Hudobin more time.
That's definitely going to help for that, but it's not going to help with Sagan being out either.
No, Sagan's going to miss. He's going to be out deeper into the year than Bishop is expected to be. Sagan, you're at least into April before you see Tyler Sagan again.
Exactly.
So that's such a loss to their forward group because Dallas isn't an offensive team to begin with. So when you take their number one center out of the lineup, that's a loss right there.
Exactly. And, believe it or not, I actually, they were a sleeper team for me last year. I actually had them picked as my sleeper team to make it to the Cup Finals and win. I was, a little bit off. A little bit off on that one. They made it to the finals, and they gave a little bit of fight there for Tampa Bay. But I actually have them starting off pretty good this year, even with the subtraction of players like Corey Perry left too. You know what I mean? And so they've had some guys leave, but I thought with the addition of Anton Hudobin, that it wasn't going to matter with Bishop, and I also thought that Jake Ottinger would be a very good backup goalie for him and be somebody that would get a shot, that would be able to be sitting back there and getting a shot and playing some games, because especially with this season, we know that they're going to have to carry at least 2 or 3 goalies going in, because there's going to be back-to-backs and games where, it might not be a back-to-back, but you might have to be playing a game one night and then the next night you're in another city playing a game or something like that. You know what I mean? So there's going to be some times there where they're going to need, the backup goalie to take over.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been a theme of this offseason is we have some big name players not starting the season ready to go, and we have some guys that won't be playing at all. And Nikita Kucherov is such a big name, superstar in the league. And I think that one's being overlooked a little bit because Kucherov being out absolutely saved Tampa Bay's bacon when it comes to the salary cap.
Big time.
And the other thing is they just won the Stanley Cup without Steven Stamkos. Stamkos played all of about 3 minutes in the playoffs last year, and they won the cup. They won the cup without him. Now that Stamkos is healthy, he's in camp, he's ready to go. Now you take Kucherov out of the lineup, but you're like, they can probably still win without Kucherov because they're that freaking good because they're the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Well, that is why they were able to win without Stamkos, was because of Kucherov. So, I mean...
so now do they win without Kucherov
with Stamkos in now?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so let's see.
Yeah.
I mean, that's flip-flop, let's see what you got. And Kucherov is not expected back at all this year, is he?
Not in the regular season. He could
not
be
in the
back
regular
in the
season.
playoffs, but not at all in the regular season.
All right, and that is at least Stamkos played through all of the regular season last year. I mean, no, I think he was out.
He missed the end, but he played.
Yeah, like the last 2 weeks, I think he missed.
Yeah, but he played most of the regular season.
Right. So he played most of the regular season and then missed the last, like, say, week or so of the regular season because of the injury, and then missed all of the round robin and most all of the playoffs, and then only played 2 minutes and 46 seconds. Did score a goal.
He did. That was a great goal too.
Right, it was. It was a great goal, and it was like you couldn't have written that any better. better.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, okay, all right, kudos, 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 congratulations, to the Tampa Bay Lightning for winning the cup, and but I think that's going to affect Tampa Bay. I think.
Yep.
I think they're going to be missing Kucherov more than when they were missing Stamkos,
Okay.
because I think Kucherov was um, more of that of a he's a younger version, say, a faster, better, stronger.
Yeah, I think Kucherov's their best player.
That's
So,
what I mean.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
you could maybe say Hedman on the back end, but I don't like to compare
No, but I
forwards
mean in
and
the front.
defensemen
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's
in the
so
front.
different. But
Yeah.
as far as their forward group goes, Nikita Kucherov is the Tampa Bay Lightning's best forward. So
Everything goes through him.
losing
Well,
him
it
is
did.
certainly going to affect the Lightning. I just feel like they're such a deep team and such a good team that they're still going to be one of the top teams in the league even without him somehow.
Yeah, yeah. No arguments here.
Yeah,
You
they're
know what I mean?
unbelievable.
So what do you think about the Pasternak being out? How do you think that's going to affect?
I mean, for a team like Boston, it's never good to lose your top goal scorer. That hurts. That
Hey, what do you know?
definitely.
That's the third one now that we're talking about here, right? Top goal scorer, Kucherov, Sagan, now Pasternak. What's going on?
Yeah, there's a lot of big names, and Pasternak does appear to be ahead of schedule.
Okay.
He's originally the timeline was mid-February for Pasternak. Now we're looking at early February, and he
Ooh.
will only miss a few weeks of the season, which would be certainly beneficial for the Bruins to get him back sooner rather than later. But
Yeah.
it is, I mean, those games that they have to play without him, that is goal scoring that you cannot replace just by throwing someone else up on that line. He is your best.
Right.
He is your best goal scorer. So it's certainly going to affect the Bruins, and it makes the goals a little bit tougher to come by when he's out of the lineup.
I couldn't agree with you on that one for sure. And look, I still think though that Boston is pretty deep
I
enough
do too.
that they're going to probably be able to handle those maybe first 10 games
Yeah,
that
somewhere around there.
that he's not going to play, something along those lines. You know what I mean? If you're saying early February, I think that gets us that first week, 2 weeks of the season, maybe 10, 15 games, something like that. I think we're going to be into that kind of thing
Yeah, it
there.
should be about 10 games, I
10
I
games.
think.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I was thinking. You know what I mean? So, okay, well, all right. Well, now we've talked about injuries,
Yeah.
and gosh, that list was really long. What do you think we talk about a little Matthew Barzal?
Yeah, switching from injuries to contract dispute
How
now.
about
I
that?
I like it. Yeah,
Just
this
like
whole
that, injuries to contracts.
Matt Barzal situation is certainly one of the top stories in hockey right now. The Islanders start their season on Thursday night, or do they don't play? No, they don't play Wednesday. They start on
No, they play
Thursday.
Thursday. Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
start Thursday against the Rangers, and Matt Barzal right now, their number one center, their best offensive player, does not have a contract and is not participating in training camp. And Lou Lamoriello is an old school GM, and when you have old school GMs and kind of these young kids who want big money at a young age, that clashes quite a bit, and it sometimes doesn't end well. So this Barzal situation is going to be really, really interesting to see what happens. But I'll tell you one thing: if the New York Islanders have to play any games without Matt Barzal, or God forbid the entire season without Matt Barzal, that is a huge loss for New York.
Well, you know what? That's what I was just gonna say. And because me thinking that, I think they're gonna get stuff worked out so that he's on the ice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how they're going to do that, but Lamoriello is one of those types of, and just like you said, he's an old school guy. And when you basically, air your laundry out there and tell people what you think you're worth, that's not going to go over well with your GM.
Mm-hmm.
Especially who's an old school guy who pretty much dictates to you what the contract's going to be. And if you like it, okay, cool. Then you can sign on the dotted line. And if you don't, then okay, well, we'll see what we can get for you. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I do agree. I think that it is going to be a very hot topic, especially if we get much closer to the season and there's still not a deal.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to say that I think down deep, I
Mm-hmm.
think we're going to get uh, the Barzal contract is going to be resolved and he's going to be on the ice for the start of the season because as you stated right there, if he is not on the ice, that deeply, deeply affects how it's going to go with how the Islanders are going to fly.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they have to have Matt Barzal to be a playoff team. He just brings so much offense to them, and really is the driving force behind their point production and their goal scoring. So I tend to agree with you. I feel like this is something that's going to come down to the last minute. This is going to
Of
be
course it is.
this is going to be an 11th hour
Of
signing
course.
where they're just about out of time. Islanders are playing in a couple days, and then all of a sudden they go, "All right, we agreed. It's not going to be a long-term deal. I think if it was going to be
No,
a long-term deal, it would have been done by now. It's
agreed.
probably going to be a 1-year band-aid." And then you readdress it next offseason. But I feel like something's got to get done here to get Barzal in the Islanders lineup.
Couldn't agree with you more. And I also think it's going to come down to the 11th hour,
Mm-hmm.
where it's going to be, the season starts in a couple of days and hey, suddenly the Islanders and Barzal come to an agreement, and so I just have that gut feeling because of that particular reason right there. I think that although Lamorello is an old style GM and things of that nature, he's obviously sees the value of this type of player, especially with the Islanders, and especially if he wants to continue and climb that ladder. I mean, they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals last
Mm-hmm.
year, and I do agree with you 110%. They will not sniff anywhere close to that if he's not in the lineup.
No, I don't think I don't think they'll make the playoffs without Matt Barzal. That division's going to be difficult. You've got 6 really good teams in that division. Only 4 of them are getting in. I don't think the Islanders are getting in if they don't have Matt Barzal in that lineup, or if they trade, if they're able to pull off some sort of blockbuster move, where they could trade him, but they would need a top line center
I was
coming
just going to say,
back.
yeah, where would you go to look to, who could you, I mean, look, he's going to command at least at the very least
On
6 mil a
on a
year.
1-year short-term deal, he's at least 6. On a long-term deal, he's at least 8.
Right. Okay. So yeah, you basically took the words right out of my mouth. And here's the other thing that I think you made a really good point about too is this. I do think that, and this is why I think it's going to happen because it's going to be a 1-year deal
Mm-hmm.
because of the whole salary cap and everything like that, what's going on. And the Islanders kind of, have a little bit of issues and stuff like that moving forward with having to find some money and, but they're going to get some help. But I really think that it's going to be a 1-year band-aid deal
Mm-hmm.
where they're going to address it at the end of this season so they can get this season up and running. Okay. And I think that's what's going to happen here with some of these other players that, maybe with other issues that other players maybe aren't signed or whatever, because we talk about a lot of these tryout contracts.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so this is an opportunity for these players to get a shot. You know what I mean? And so I don't know. I just think that the Barzal thing is going to get resolved maybe at the 11th hour, maybe at the 10th hour. Who knows? But it's going to
Yep.
be one of those things. I do agree with you, though. I think it's going to be like a 1-year patch deal,
Yeah.
$6.75 million for 1 year, and then because now it's not a prorated deal,
Yep.
right? Because they're only playing 56 games, okay? And they didn't do the adjustments to the player sharing or the player payments that they have to make.
Yep.
So he's only going to be able to collect a smaller percentage of that, owing to the money that they owe and all that other stuff with the collective bargaining agreement and everything like that. So
Yep.
that's exactly why I think it's going to be a 1-year band-aid deal for him, and then they will address it at the end of the year. And so that's why I'm counting on him being on the Islanders.
Yeah. Well, we'll certainly see what happens. By the next time we do a show, we should have an answer,
I think
because
so.
the season will have started. So we should certainly know what's going on by the next time we do a show. But moving on now, One thing I want to touch on, and we were talking about the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Nikita Kucherov injury a little bit earlier. Can simple question: Can Tampa repeat as Stanley Cup champions this year, even without Nikita Kucherov, at least for the regular season? Now there
Right.
is potential for him to come back in the playoffs and play, but at least for the regular season, they're going to be without Kuch, who like I said, I think is their best forward, certainly, and
Yeah. Well,
repeating's never easy to begin with.
correct. But they were able to find the way to get the players back on the team.
Yes, which
Okay.
largely was because of Kucherov's injury.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay. So, having said that, not having a lot of turnover as far as a lot of players coming in and going out,
Yep.
they're pretty much putting the same team on the ice that pretty much hoisted the cup.
Yep. For the
Minus
most part.
Kucherov.
Minus Kucherov,
Minus
but add
Kucherov,
back in
but plus
Stamkos.
Stamkos. Right.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, now, Stamkos is, older and slower and not as superstar like as Kucherov is, but
He still can put up big numbers.
exactly. Exactly. And he's going to be playing with guys that he's been playing with for a while now, you know what I mean? And so I think it's going to take him a game or two, and you're going to see Stamkos flying around again, and that's how it's going to be. I give them a pretty good shot. I actually have them pretty highly rated on my rankings, even without Kucherov, because of Stamkos being healthy and in camp and everything. So I do think that they have a good shot. I think they're going to make the playoffs.
Oh, yes.
Because of the division that they're in.
Yeah.
It's not a strong division.
No.
Okay.
It's not the worst division, but
right.
It's certainly you've got some bottom feeders with Detroit and Chicago there for sure.
But I think they can be in the top 4 in that division and make the playoffs. And as long as you make the playoffs, as long as you get to the dance, that's all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Now, I never pick teams to repeat because it just hardly ever happens. So when I'm doing predictions, I never pick teams to repeat because, with the exception of 16 and 17 with Pittsburgh, you have to go all the way back to 97, 98 with the Detroit Red Wings before you see a team that's won back-to-back cups. Even all those great Chicago teams through the past decade, they never won back-to-back.
Nope.
LA won in 12 and 14, but couldn't do anything back-to-back. Winning
Right.
back-to-back cups is one of the hardest things to do in sports and just very rarely happens. You see it once every, especially now more in the modern era. You saw dynasties a lot back in the 70s
I was just gonna say,
and 80s.
yeah.
But now with the salary cap, the salary cap has put such a it's made it so much more of a challenge to put those super teams together. Going back to back is just extremely difficult, and I never pick teams to do it. Can Tampa do it? Do they have the talent to do it? Of course. This is a team that just won the cup. This is a team that's been one of the best teams in the league for the past couple of years, and they're bringing back largely the same team. They still have Vasilevsky in net. They still have Hedman and McDonough on the back end. They brought back Sergachev. They still got Braden Point and Steven Stamkos up front. They brought back Cirelli. Can they win? Absolutely. Am I picking them to do it? No, because it just very rarely happens, but they certainly have the ability to do it.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I agree with you 100%. I'm not picking them to repeat, but I am picking them to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
okay.
I'm 100%. I have them actually winning their division. I have Tampa finishing first in the Central, but I just think at some point along the playoff line they'll get knocked out. One thing I will say is one of the things that makes back-to-back cups so difficult is the grind of playing that much hockey in such a short amount of time in a 2-year span, where you have a full 82-game season, then a full playoffs, 4 rounds, all the way to the cup. Then you have another full 82-game season, and then 4 more rounds of playoff hockey all the way to the cup. That grind is what makes winning back-to-back so difficult. Normally, Tampa doesn't have that same grind this year.
That's what I was just going to say, yeah.
This season is 56 games, and then last season they had a long layoff, more than a normal offseason, between the end of the regular season and the start of the playoffs. So they really had just a playoffs, a shortened season, and then a playoffs again, where they would not be doing the same grind that a normal back-to-back champion would do, and that certainly would benefit the Tampa Bay Lightning.
That's actually a really good point, and it was something that I wanted to talk to you about too, was the fact that, well, they only played 70 games last year.
Yep.
Right? Okay, so they didn't even play the full 82.
82, yeah.
And then there was 146 days from the time that when they shut everything down to when they brought everybody back to start playing again in the bubble. Okay? Or it was like 146, 141, something like that, crazy like that, right?
It was a long time.
Right. Okay. So then they come out, they start off a little slow. They had a little bit of tough issue there with Columbus, and then they hit their stride and bang, they're raising the cup. Then, okay, that happened. It was September. Now we don't have any meaningful games here for at least another week. Right? So that's a much longer off season than what they normally get. Right? Because the end of June is when they hand out the cup, and then September is when you're back skating again.
Yep.
Okay, so a longer off season, and then obviously a much shorter season this year than even last year.
Yep.
So the potential is there.
Yeah, I absolutely agree that the shortened seasons is certainly something that would benefit the Lightning trying to go back-to-back, where they don't have the same extensive schedule and playing that many games in a 2-year span.
You know what else, too? And they're playing a much weaker division. Okay, which is another factor that you have to throw in. Okay, and the fact that I think that they are very stacked. I mean, I really think that they're a very talented team.
Oh,
they're playing, in a weaker division. And so I agree. It's hard to repeat, but teams have done it, and it wouldn't be unheard of.
I'm with you on that.
For Tampa Bay to repeat, but I'm not picking them.
Yeah, I'm not picking them, but it's certainly possible. Absolutely. So
I agree.
Yeah. So as we've been saying, we're less than a week away from the start of the NHL season. Training camps are in full swing. And there's certainly plenty to talk about around the league out of training camps, roster stuff, guys on PTOs. Obviously, we've talked extensively earlier in the show about all the big-name injuries that we have in the league right now. I want to touch on the PTO things, the player tryouts, playing for a contract. There's a few of them around the league, some bigger names than others, and some of them are just kind of formalities because of IR situations. Like Mike Hoffman has a contract in place with the St. Louis Blues. They just can't officially sign it until Steen is on LTIR, and they can take that money and use it on Hoffman. Hamonic's the same situation with the Vancouver Canucks. He's going to be a Vancouver Canuck. They just have to wait until Michael Furlan gets on LTIR.
Right.
One guy, though, that did go into training camp on a strictly PTO and was just a tryout, but has earned a contract, is Riley Sheahan with the Buffalo Sabres. He signed early this morning with Buffalo, an actual 1-year contract, $700,000 for this year. And he's a depth guy. He's been around the block a little bit. He played with Detroit. He's played with Pittsburgh. He spent last year with Edmonton.
Yeah.
He's kind of a depth forward who plays in your bottom six and most likely on the fourth line. But Buffalo gives him a real contract, so it looks like we're going to see him in a Sabres uniform this year. Thoughts on Riley Sheahan getting a deal? Will we see more of this as well?
I think we're gonna.
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna see even more movement with guys, especially with guys like this moving forward. Because especially if teams have a little bit of room, okay, I think they're gonna be more than apt to bring in some of these folks because they might not be with the big club. And as far as we know, the AHL is slated to start in February.
February, yes.
Right? Okay, so if they're not playing with the big club, then they'll be playing down in the AHL. And that, as from what I understand, is they're going to be able to still be able to pull players from the AHL.
Well, they have the taxi squad now, too, which is different this year.
Well, okay, right. But I mean, aside from the taxi squad.
Yeah, you'll have call-ups as well.
That's what I mean. That's going to be, I think, that's going to be a major role based off of what we talked about at the top of the show with the whole COVID situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why they've set it up like that, so that if they do run into some major issues, they have a pool of
Mm-hmm.
players that they can pull from that
Yep.
are, I mean, let's face it, they're tweeners.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Riley
they're bottom
Shane's.
line guys. You know, they're making $700,000, the league minimum,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. You know what I mean? They're tweeners. Those
Yes.
guys that could either play in the NHL for a couple minutes a game, or they could play for like 12 or 15 minutes a game down in the AHL.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so, but you're going to need those kinds of guys. And I think I agree with you. I think Riley getting a deal in Buffalo is a good deal for Buffalo. And a good deal for him. Obviously, he gets him on the ice, he gets him playing.
Yep.
You know, gets him in a locker room, and hey, kudos to him. But I think we're going to see more and more of these types of players as we get closer and closer to the start of the season, especially if we get an injury or two, which we haven't heard of yet.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't heard of any major injuries or anything like that. But I just feel that with the AHL starting like kind of in February, and then some of the teams kind of bringing some of these tryout players in, it's kind of giving them an opportunity to kind of backstack their lineup. Can I say it like that? Is that a good
It's
or stock their lineup so that they can go
depth.
into?
Depth is going to be very
There you
important
go.
this year. This year is going to be all about organizational depth, and throughout the year, particularly once we get playing games and the season started, guys are going to get hurt. It's hockey. It's a full contact sport. It's physical, and
Yeah.
players get injured, and you're going to see just as many injuries this year as in a normal year. You also have the impact of potential COVID positives and COVID outbreaks affecting the lineup as well, which is something that you don't have in most other years. So organizational depth is going to be absolutely huge to teams, because there could be a time where you have, 4 or 5 guys out of the lineup, and you're going to be pulling guys from the taxi squad, and you're going to be pulling guys from the AHL as well to try and fill out your lineup and make sure that you have a full active roster for the season at points.
Exactly, because that's what they're going to have to do. If they pull guys, so let's say a team has an outbreak and there's 5 of their top players are out due to COVID. So that pretty much is the taxi squad. Or actually, that's not the taxi squad, because the taxi squad has to be between 4 and 6 players,
Mm-hmm.
has to contain at least one goalie,
Goaltender, yes.
at least one goaltender. So that only leaves you potentially only 4 forwards. You have to have at least one defenseman.
Yeah, you got to split that 4D. You can't have 5 forwards on there. You got to have some forwards and some D.
So now you have to bring guys. So you have to bring guys from the AHL or wherever in your within your organization to fill out those guys in the taxi squad or whatever to fill out the rest of the lineup. So that's why I think it's going to be a major issue moving forward, where you're going to start seeing teams starting to fill out their lineups like that with guys like this. And plus I think too that the other shoe that dropped was, now we know when there's a hard and fast date of when there's actually going to be a start of the season. So now guys know, okay, January 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, whatever, when any one of those 4 dates or whatever is your start of your season, okay, that's when the start of the season is going to go. So now we know that that's when paychecks start to happen.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. And that's going to be the key right there, is when paychecks start to happen.
Yes, and another thing with the flat cap, and we know that we're with this offseason, we're in the flat cap era now. Getting some of these veteran guys who have played in the league but are kind of borderline, they're depth guys, they're extra forward, 4th line type material, like a Riley Shane, being able to get them on your roster for only 700 or 750K is going to help your cap situation so much, to be able to kind of have those guys at a very low cost. And he's someone that may be destined for the taxi squad, but you got to fit those taxi squad guys under the cap as well. They do count, and it's not exactly like, I think, a 1-for-1 ratio, but they do somewhat count against the cap while they're on the taxi squad. It's like
Okay.
a percentage of it counts against the salary cap. So
Okay.
getting these guys on cheap deals, these veteran guys on cheap deals that are just trying to stay in the league, those are going to be important for teams from an organizational depth standpoint and from a salary cap standpoint for sure.
Couldn't agree with you more. And you brought up a really good point too there with the fact that salary cap, the fact that these taxi squad folks have to be within sort of within the salary cap kind of thing. You know what I mean? So when you start getting guys like these depth guys that don't count very highly against the cap,
Mm-hmm.
that 700,000, those are very low numbers against the cap. So that's always going to bode well, I think, and I think that's going to be a major issue moving forward, especially with some of these tryout contracts. We all know that we think that Hoffman he already has a contract
Mm-hmm.
with St. Louis. You know what I mean? So that right there in itself, I think that really adds a major puzzle piece to St. Louis, just having him on the in the lineup there as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how some of these teams are going to move forward, especially teams that have had a lot of turnover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I just looked it up because I had my notes from a video I did when hockey first came back about the taxi squad. And it says, so if you're on a one-way contract and you are sent down to the taxi squad, you still get paid your standard NHL salary. If you're on a two-way contract, which means you have an NHL salary and then an AHL salary, you would get paid what your AHL salary would be. Players that require waivers to be sent down to the AHL would require waivers to be sent down to the taxi squad, and the cap hit is equivalent to burying them in the minors. So the Wade Redden rule comes back here and goes into effect. So you cannot bury an entire
Taxi squad.
and yeah, you cannot bury an entire contract in the taxi squad, just like you can't bury an entire contract in the AHL, like what the Rangers did with Wade Redden and what led
Right.
to this rule, where they just sent a $6 million defenseman down to the AHL and were like, he doesn't count against the cap anymore. They changed the rule after that. So I believe you get about $1 million in cap relief. So it does take some off of the cap. I think it's like 1.25 million. It's a maximum or something like that. But it doesn't completely rid you of their cap hit. So GMs are going to be playing with fire here, making sure that they're under that salary cap, especially with it still being 81.5 million.
Yeah, but they're going to have to though.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
just based off of situation.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's teams right now that you're supposed to, like, in a normal season you're supposed to have 50 contracts.
That the 50 is the maximum, yes.
Right. Well, not many of them have that right now. Many of them are very vastly under those.
Yes.
Okay. And some of them that are vastly under those are very butt up against, or if not potentially over the cap
Mm-hmm.
right now as it is.
Yep.
So what are those teams going to do that have zero or no space or less than zero space with cap? What, they're not allowed to have a taxi squad?
Yeah, they're gonna have to fit it in somehow. They're gonna have to bury money somewhere, and
they're gonna be bringing up a lot of their prospects to be on that taxi squad.
you're gonna be seeing as low cost contracts as possible being put there for sure, just to fit under the cap.
I mean, yeah, that's gonna be, and then I think that's gonna be the reality of things. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And so, well, it is what it is, right?
That's the state of the league right now, and that's
Yeah.
the part of the financial toll that COVID has taken on the NHL is that this money doesn't just show up. Like if you don't have fans in the stadiums, if you don't have people buying concessions, if you don't have that kind of in-person revenue coming in, I mean, they're trying their best to make up for it in other ways, but you're never going to fully replace that. It's just not financially possible. So the league's going to just weather a financial storm here and somehow get through it until we see those brighter days at the end of the tunnel. Hopefully, a year, a year or so down the line.
That's kind of amazing that you bring that up, because I think that's a perfect way to bring up the fact that I think we're going to see fans.
Hmm.
Florida has already come out and said they were going to admit 25% capacity
Yep.
into their stadium. So in Florida, so that's the Panthers and the Lightning, right?
Yeah, Florida's at 25% capacity. Tampa Bay is allowing 23% capacity. Arizona 25% capacity, and Dallas is allowing 5,000 up to 5,000 fans, which is around 30% capacity.
Okay.
Those are the
So
four teams right now that have said they will start the season with fans. Other than that, I think the rest of the teams knows at least to start the year, but they're going to try and obviously work towards fans as the year goes along.
right, right. And see, I wanted to bring this up because you brought up concessions and all other stuff. And look, the whole model of the NHL is built around the fact that there has to be butts in the seats,
Mm-hmm.
because even though their contract with the TV rights and all that is a very nice contract, and it's very lucrative. I mean, it's what, $4.5 billion, but it's over the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So in essence, that only equates to about $170 million a year.
Yeah, and that sounds
Okay.
like a lot of money, but when you're running an entire sports league, it really isn't.
And well, then you take that $170 million and you got to divvy that up to 32
30.
different teams.
Yep.
And now suddenly that $170 million looks like a smaller pile, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And look, let's face it, each team has a salary cap of $81 million.
Mm-hmm.
And there are teams out there that can't even
Spend that.
spend that money,
Yeah.
right? And then there's teams that are, well, they're a little bit over. They don't have a problem spending it. You know
Yes.
what I mean? So, but that to me, I think, is one of the key factors moving forward with the hockey season itself. And I think that's what this whole model is built on, the fact that they believe that fans are going to be in the stands as we progress in the
As the
season.
year goes along, absolutely.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think you're going to start to see, once you start to see more and more of the vaccine being distributed,
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to start to see more and more of the hard lockdowns being relaxed, and you're going to start to see fans in the stands and things of that nature. So, but that to me is the key to all of this, because if they don't have the fans in the stands now, it's a much harder financial hit to take,
Mm-hmm.
because let's
Absolutely.
face it, they already had the TV contracts in place and everything was pretty much already paid by the time they shut everything down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then everything was just started off with the playoffs. Players already had their contracts, were already paid, so it's not like they were paying contracts during the playoffs. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? And guys were basically up there in the bubble and they were playing, and it was great for the league, and it was good for the league itself. The
Mm-hmm.
whole league itself looked great. And they put up a really good product and they did a really good thing. Although there was no fans in the stands, they were still able to, hoist a cup.
Yep.
Okay. But to me, hockey is predicated on people watching the game at the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's one thing to turn it on the TV, but it's another thing when, 70% of your revenue is based off of the people that come to the games every night.
Yep.
you know
Yeah,
and then
that's
and then the
huge.
trickle down of that is the fact that the concession workers and the
Mm-hmm.
people that are selling the programs and the people that are selling the t-shirts and the people that are selling the soft pretzels and the guy down there slinging the t-shirts. I mean, all those people are all getting paid because of this event that's going on. And
Yep.
when that event's not going on and there's no fans, those people don't really get to work and they don't get to earn money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And all the teams have pretty much laid off all of those people and all of those staff, and and it's not just hockey. This is something in every sport and just the
Every
entertainment,
walk of life.
every walk of life, the entertainment industry in general, and It's a hard financial hit, even for people. Think of sports leagues. I mean, the players make so much money, the league generates so much money. People think of these, these sports leagues as almost untouchable because they're these billion-dollar industries, but the financial hit here is very, very real, and they're not completely untouchable. As big and as popular as they are, they still have bills to pay. They still have money that needs to be coming in. And if they don't have enough money coming in, that becomes a serious problem. And I don't care how big of a league you are. Luckily, they have, television contracts. They have, a lot of other things they can do to generate money. But there's no doubt that this is a hit. This has hurt the league, certainly from a financial standpoint, and it's going to have a lasting effect for years to come. This isn't a financial hit that you just get over as soon as all of a sudden you're back to an 82-game season and there's fans in the stands. You're not just magically all better. This is going to affect the league for years down the line.
And not just in salary cap,
Mm-hmm.
because the salary cap is going to stay flat for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're going to do a reassessment and see how things are, and then they'll go from there.
And it may not even go up with that
Right.
reassessment.
Exactly. Okay. And so you're looking at some of these young players right now that are coming up that are, at that time where they're looking for that big 8, 9, 7, 8, $9 million a year contract for, 5, 6, 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? Those contracts are gone now.
Yeah.
Because teams are not going to have the dough to pay you that kind of money for that amount of years.
Absolutely.
It's just not going to be there.
I mean, money-wise, contracts are going to take a step back. The excuse me, the $11-12 million deals, the Mitch Marner getting over 10 million, the Austin Matthews getting over 11 million. Those
the
deals,
Bobrovsky 10 million.
The Bobrovsky getting 10 million as a veteran goaltender, you're just not going to see it.
Yep,
because of the salary cap and because of the teams financially, they can't pay it. I remember, if you go back to like the 2008, 2009, around there, getting $6 million a year was a big deal. The best players in the league were getting like $6.5 million. Now you've got like third line players making $6.5 million.
When
you're going to see a
Kovalchuk signed his deal, like for what was it, 10 years?
It was like 12 or something.
Whatever,
obnoxious.
Right? Yeah, but it was like over $100 million a year, or $100 million for the whole life of the contract, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something's okay. When that contract hit, that was like, oh, okay. So that's how the NHL's rolling now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah, you're not going to see those contracts anymore now, and that's why you're not seeing any movement on the Ovechkin contract talks either. And his camp pretty much came out and said, yeah, we're just going to wait till the end of the season and we'll talk about extension at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because look, let's face it, with teams not getting the revenues like they were getting with the fans in the stands, okay, then these guaranteed contracts or these contracts are not something that they can say more guarantees past a year or two.
Yeah. I mean, well, I remember going back to when Zach Parise and Ryan Suter signed their massive contracts with the Minnesota Wild. Those were blockbuster deals for an exorbitant length of time at $7.5 million per year. And at that time, $7.5 million per year was a huge contract. And now you have, 7.5. I mean, there's a lot of guys making that. I mean,
there's D-men out there going, yeah, I need 7.5 a year.
I mean, Tyler Myers, who I think is a bottom pair defenseman, got $6 million a year from Vancouver a couple summers ago. And Kevin Hayes is making over $7 million a year.
All right, but I will say this though about Kevin Hayes, and you can call me a homer all you want, but I think that Kevin Hayes played to his contract.
No, he was very good. He had a great season. But paying a second-line player over $7 million a year when a few years ago you had the best players in the league making 7.5. I mean, it just shows how much that those contracts went up in a fairly short period of time, and now they're getting really pulled back.
Well, the market was there.
It was because the revenue was there, the money
That's
was there,
yeah,
and
exactly.
now all of a sudden that rug has been pulled out from under them,
That's a great way to put
and
it.
that money isn't there because of what's happened over the past year.
Things have dried up a skosh. So we're not gonna you're not gonna get those huge contracts anymore now because there's not, what are we going to do in 5 years? We don't know if we're even going to be playing, if we're even going to still have a league in 5 years. I mean, right now that's how they're thinking. Okay. I personally, me and my gut, I think after this year and we get through this year and we hoist the cup this year, I think we're gonna have a normal off season, and then I think we're gonna start back in October.
And I think it's going to be pretty normal for 21-22. I'm with
Yeah,
you on that. With what's happening and everything, I think we should be in a drastically different place come the beginning of April or May than where we are right now. That would be the hope, at least, is
that's
that
what I'm
things are
praying
going to
for.
be
Yeah,
significantly better 4 or 5 months from now than what they are right now.
yeah. Hopefully.
Hopefully, if they're not, we've got, I think, bigger problems than the NHL on our hands if they're not.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. So, like I said, the more now that the vaccine is being distributed, and the more people get the opportunity to get the vaccine, I think you're going to start to see more and more regulations being relaxed, as you see people getting more and more of the vaccine available, and you're going to see more of the hopefully the regulations being relaxed and allow for the fans. That's what drives this whole model, and eventually, the paper's going to come due,
Mm-hmm.
and if you keep kicking the can down the road, I mean, that's all fine and great, but like I said, eventually that paper's going to come due.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think that as the year goes along, you're going to see more teams allowing fans. Right now, there's only 4, but I think 2 months from now there could be more than that.
I think
Um,
sooner.
yeah, hopefully even sooner. But I think there's going to be more than that as the season goes along. The thing I wonder about is the Canadian teams. In the U.S., I think you're going to start to see things really start to relax as the year goes along. But Canada's been much more stringent with their restrictions and shutdowns and everything than most of the U.S. has. I mean, when you can't even compare a state like Florida to what's going on in Canada, where they're like locked in. Um, so it makes sense that Florida and Tampa Bay are going to have fans to start because they've been very lenient with everything and they haven't
Yeah,
completely shut things down.
yeah.
Whereas the Canadian teams, I think it's going to be a lot longer before we see the Canadian teams have fans than what we see here in the U.S.
Yeah, okay, that's a great point. I didn't even think about that fact that the Canadians have their own division now too. So, yeah, that's actually a really great point, and I wasn't even thinking about the fact that the Canadians are much more strict and they're much more locked down, and they
Hmm.
have much more, restrictive things going on up there than they do down here. And I agree. I think that it's going to be much longer, even before we see fans in Canada. And I'm going to be interested to see how that whole thing is going to start with them,
Hmm.
because they're still going to travel amongst themselves in Canada, right? They're
Yep.
still going to go to Toronto and Montreal and Calgary and all that other stuff, right?
Hmm. Yes,
Okay,
the
well,
Canadian teams are traveling province to province within Canada.
all right, okay. So they're still going to be traveling. They're still going to be, they're doing the same thing that the United States teams are doing, only they're doing it in Canada.
Hmm.
And so is Canada going to be? Are they still going to be locked down? Are they still going to be? That's going to be the thing.
Well, they have permission. They have permission right now to business as usual. Go ahead with the NHL's plan. What I wonder is how's Canada going to react if players on Canadian teams start coming up positive. Are they going to freak out about it a lot more than the U.S. would, I mean, we've had the NFL all season. Players are positive. They sit out for a week or two. And the U.S. is pretty used to it at this point, but I wonder how Canada's going to react. Say if 3 or 4 players on the Montreal Canadiens all of a sudden come up positive, they're not are they going to be going to
going to shut
Vancouver?
down the team.
Are they going to be going to Vancouver? Or are they going to shut that team down? Whereas in the U.S., we're just like, well, you guys got games next week, so call up your replacement players, keep those guys back at home.
We'll see you on the ice.
We'll see you on the ice tomorrow night.
Game starts at 7:00.
Yeah, the U.S. and Canada it's going to be interesting to see what happens in Canada.
That's a really great point. And man, I wasn't even thinking about that because they really are much more locked down. Mm-hmm. And if they've given them basically the free reign to do what they need to do, then I guess we're going to be okay as far as that's concerned, as far as the teams are concerned. But you bring up a really good point with what happens if they start getting some guys testing positive. Then what?
Then I think things could change quickly with the Canadian government.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Suddenly the rules aren't going to be as lax anymore, I think. And that could potentially spell some issues, I think. Maybe. What do you think? And, speaking of issues and scheduling and all that other kind of fun stuff, right?
Yep.
How about the schedule for NBC was released, earlier today?
It was... I forget if it was yesterday. It might have been yesterday morning or the day before.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly. I was jumping up and down. So NBC did their schedule release in 2 different segments. And I thought that the first segment was the only one. I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, that's why I was like,
I wasn't expecting the second one, which is why I got really excited when the second one dropped. But I absolutely wanted to talk about the NBC schedule because for those of us in the United States, we get the chance to see a lot more hockey than normal this year. And I'm just so stoked to see how many games they're going to be showing nationally, either on NBC or NBCSN this season. Because it's a ton of games. So to start, they originally dropped the first NBC schedule was right after the NHL dropped their schedule. So they dropped their schedule, and then like a day later, NBC dropped their schedule for Wednesday night hockey, Sunday games on NBC, and then the Sunday night games that they're doing this year. Oh. And so they had games on Wednesdays and then usually 2 games on Sundays, sometimes only 1, but sometimes 2. They had a decent amount of Sunday night games this year as well, which is kind of different from what they normally do, added in.
Yeah.
And I thought that was it. I was like, okay, so they're going to stick to their Wednesday, which is their usual day. They're going to have their Sundays. And I thought that was it. And then this week, they drop a whole other schedule on top of it with Mondays, with Tuesdays, with a few Thursdays mixed in there, a bunch of nightcaps, which is something I also want to talk about that they're adding in, where we're seeing multiple games a day on NBC or NBCSN, whereas usually they only would have 1. So much hockey on NBC this year. We're going to get a ton of games, a lot of nationally televised action. I'm super excited for it. I'm sure you must be as well.
Oh my gosh. Here's the best part about it. We're going to actually get to see matchups okay, we're on the East Coast. Mm-hmm. Right? So we normally don't really get a chance to watch Vegas much or Colorado much unless they come to play our teams. Now, with the way the schedules have been the last few years, where they've made it so that every team gets a chance to come and visit every building. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean, throughout the season. Now, you know what I mean? But now with this 56 games and then the rearranging of the divisions, and now with all of these games now they're going to be putting out on NBC, I mean, hey, hi there. We interrupt this relationships, work schedules.
Oh yeah.
we interrupt life to bring you hockey. You, it's like almost like watching Olympic hockey,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
There's a game every every hour and a half. There's a game.
Yeah, Monday the 18th is like that because it's a holiday. It's Martin Luther King Jr. Day here in the U.S., and it's the first Monday of the season. They have a game at noontime, they have a game at 5, they have a game at 7:30, and they have a game at 10. There's 4 games on NBCSN on Monday, January 18th.
Head blown.
You don't normally get 4 games a week on NBC. They're
I
having
mean,
4 in
really?
one. They're having 4 in one day to start the year on that first Monday.
How many of I'm wondering though, with all of the games being played on NBC because that's obviously where the contract is. I'm wondering if of how many of the games are going to be on NHL Network.
Well, NHL Network will have their own schedule on top of it, which will they'll have even more games, but
Okay, so
they
they're
won't take NBC's games. No,
okay.
it
That's what I
will
was
be
gonna.
more games stacked on. They'll have an NHL Network game, they'll have an NBC game, you'll have your local regional network games that cover the local teams, and there's just going to be a lot of hockey on. And then if you add in NHL TV, which you can go to NHL.com and purchase if you want, you can get any out of market game. You can watch any out of market game on the NHL TV app. So like
Really? Wow.
I was thinking about getting NHL TV this year because I didn't know NBC was going to be showing so many games, and I wanted to be able to stream more and kind of pick and choose what games I got to do. But then
Well, they just
NBC
made that much easier for you, they
then
didn't you?
NBC dropped this second schedule, and I'm like, I don't need NHL TV because NBC is going to have games on at least 3 to 4 nights a week. I have
Hey,
Bruins games on, in my home market that I can watch anytime they're on. So it saved me the $100 of getting NHL TV
hey.
because there's just so many games on already. I can't watch all of them.
See, now I'm lucky too because where I'm at, for me, it's the Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So with my setup, I haven't missed a game in 15 years.
Wow, that's awesome.
Okay, so I mean, I get to watch even if they because I have two of local channels here.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the main one that plays the games, and then there's the secondary one that'll play the away games.
Yep.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So even if the game is away, I still get local guys calling the away games
Mm-hmm.
on the secondary channel. Right.
Makes
So
sense.
and then if it's not an away game, if it's a home game, then unless if it's a national game, then I'm getting the local guys calling the game for Philadelphia. You know what I mean? Unless it's a national game, then it'll be the national guys calling it in for NBC.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So, but more of the Philadelphia games are being plucked
Mm-hmm.
every year. More and more of Philadelphia games because, especially with the division that they're in, playing against Pittsburgh multiple games, playing against Boston multiple games, playing against the Rangers multiple games,
Rangers, yep.
playing against the Islanders multiple games. I mean, what? Come on, this is automatic top 5 TV.
And they're a top team too, and NBC tends to try and lean towards the top teams. And with Philly, as good as they were last season, and looking like they're certainly going to be a full-on Stanley Cup contender again this season, the NBC wants those high-profile matchups with good teams and exciting divisional matchups against rival teams like the Penguins and the Bruins and the Rangers and all of them.
That's why they kept those divisions somewhat. They tried to keep some of the rivalries.
Yeah, as much as
Okay,
they could, yes.
but they kind of broke up some really good ones.
Yeah, they broke up Boston and Tampa Bay, but we get the Bruins and Rangers back, and we get the Bruins and Flyers. So
Yeah,
they
but
did
but
what they
I'm
could.
yeah, I mean, but some of the Western teams got broken up and merged with the Central and such, and so I think some of those with Detroit, some of those Detroit matchups are going to be sorely missed.
Hmm.
You know what I mean, and things of that nature too. And speaking of matchups, I mean, opening
We've
night,
got opening night. We've been talking about the schedule. We've got a
opening night.
beautiful 5-game slate. 3 of them will be televised on NBCSN in the United States. Opening night. Starting off with the Philadelphia Flyers and the Pittsburgh Penguins, the first
5:30.
game of the new NHL season. That is going to be a heck of a matchup to start things off.
Look, Pittsburgh is coming in with a couple of nice little trades. They've done some things with their lineup. They've gotten rid of their coaching staff and have brought in some different coaching staffs. They've got a whole kind of a bit of a revamped different team there going on with trying to keep Malkin and Crosby still flying, right? They're gonna start off the season with Yari, right, as in goal,
Tristan
right?
Jarry
And so
net.
right? And so Pittsburgh is looking to try to put it back together, trying to keep things rolling, right?
Yes.
Philadelphia, just like you said last year, man, we were one game away from making it to the Eastern Conference Finals. And I think Philadelphia was the hottest team going into the break. And then, unfortunately, coming out of the break, I think that really seriously affected Philadelphia. They weren't quite the same team
Yep.
coming back, and it was highly noticeable, but almost every single player is coming back. Now they lost Niskanen, but everybody's back. Sandheim's back. Even Moran is back. Okay. Oscar Lindblom is back. Nolan Patrick is back.
Great to see Lindblom and Patrick back. Those are two guys that it's really great to see back on the ice.
I'm looking for Philadelphia to handle Pittsburgh. Opening night game, 5:30. I'm looking for Philadelphia to set the tone.
I'm excited for this game, but I mean, as big of a rivalry matchup as you're gonna get, the Battle of Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh. I mean, I know how I feel about Pittsburgh this year. I think they're a declining team. I think
Agreed.
Philly's a team that's going to be right near the top of the league.
Agreed.
I think it's going to be a heck of a game, though. I think both of those teams are going to come out flying. They're going to come out flying, ready to go, and it's going to be must-see hockey to start the season.
Full on. It's going to be full on because you know what? What they did with making this 56-game schedule, they made every single game a 4-point swing game.
Yep.
Right? So now you lose to these guys, right? That's a big hit.
I didn't even think about the 4-point thing, but yeah, every game is a 4-point swing because not only do you get the 2 points for the win, but you take away the chance for 2 points from your division rival.
Exactly.
Every game means so much more this year because there's less games and every game is within the division.
Exactly.
Every game is going to be an absolute battle out on the ice because those points mean so much. And it's going to be such a dogfight to get into the playoffs.
It is. And it's going to be a sprint because they're playing a lot of games. They're playing them back to back. So there's going to be a lot of nights where, and okay, look, I understand they tried to limit the travel as much as they could, where they would stack team games there in that same city for a night or two, and then go back to another city and play another couple games over there too. So, but I do agree. I think Pittsburgh is on the decline, and I think that Philadelphia is on the rise. And Pittsburgh and Philadelphia always play well.
Yes.
Why do you think they have them as one of the Stadium Series? Why do you think they have them as one of the the Winter Classic? They had them out there for that. They had them for the Stadium Series. You know what I mean? Twice.
They're a great matchup, and they always play each other very hard.
It's must-see TV.
It is.
When it comes to hockey.
One of the best rivalries in the league.
It is. And so right there, that just tells you right there that there's a lot of respect for Pittsburgh and a lot of respect for Philadelphia when it comes to that rivalry. And as a deep, hardcore Philadelphia fan, I'll say this. I don't care if we lose every game of the year. As long as we beat Pittsburgh, I'm good.
Yep.
Okay. And look, I'm not just saying this, though, because I'm a homer. I'm saying this because I've looked at what I think Pittsburgh is doing. And I do agree. I think they're on the decline. Yep. Crosby's getting long in the tooth. Malkin's getting long in the tooth.
Letang's getting older on that back end.
Letang's getting older, right? And I just don't think they have the same kind of team. The fact that they fired their entire coaching staff.
Except the head coach, which is one of the weirdest things I've ever seen.
Okay, so you're with me on that too, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
everyone except the head coach, you're gone.
Yeah, right. So So Sully, you can stay, but everybody else, all right, see ya. It's been
Yep.
a slice, you know. So that to me spells decline.
Yeah.
Something wrong. A red flag is being waved. I mean, I don't know what you want to call it.
Matheson
Okay.
and Cece on your defense core, that's bad enough.
Now they were able to pick up some folks, but I just think they're on the decline. They are going to play the Flyers very well, but I think the Flyers are going to be too deep and too much for Pittsburgh this year. So I'm calling that right now. I'm calling Philadelphia to win the first game right off the bat against Pittsburgh, an opening game of the new season.
Oh, there you
There you
go. You
go.
heard it here first, everyone. Also, some more great games that night. Montreal and Toronto kick off Canadian division action, and these are two teams that do normally play in the same division. Obviously, they're in the North Division now instead of the normal Atlantic, but longtime rivals here. Just original six matchup, big time Canadian rivalry, and there's been a lot of talk this offseason about the Canadian rivalries really picking up again and getting
Yeah.
back into the fold and really becoming premier rivalries again because they're going to be playing each other so often. And I think an absolute poster matchup for that is going to be Montreal and Toronto this year. Just the history there between those two teams, but to get them back, playing each other so often and it's going to have an original six feel to it. Really excited for that game.
There's going to be some snarl to that game, I
Oh,
think.
yeah. Those two teams do not like each other.
No. Both teams are playoff teams from the previous year.
And I
Okay.
think both teams are at least going to be trying, certainly expecting to be playoff teams this year. Whether they get in or not remains to be seen. But both teams going into the season are expecting to be playoff teams.
Right. And I think, of the Canadian teams, I look at those two as being some of the top of the Canadian teams
I
anyway.
agree. I think they're both very good.
Yeah. I think even though Montreal kind of gained with addition by subtraction of losing Domi, you know what I mean? I think they're going to probably be a better team because now they don't have that whole thing hanging over their head now. You know what I mean?
They brought in Toffoli and Edmondson, and they still got Carey
Right.
Price in goal, and
And
Corey
right.
Perry added to the depth part of that lineup. Montreal had a heck of an offseason.
Here's the thing, though: are they going to be able to gel?
Yeah, well,
Because
that's the big question.
right, got the short training camp, no preseason games. How are you going to come out of the gates?
Yep.
Okay, Toronto had kind of the same little bit of a thing there. They had a little bit of some turnover, and
they've switched some lineup
right.
positions
Okay,
around
so
for
they're
sure.
both of those teams are going to be in the same boat at the beginning of the season.
Yep.
Okay, I think that you're going to see Toronto. I'm calling Toronto on this one.
Wow. Okay. Leafs in
Yeah,
the first game.
Yeah, I'm calling Toronto on
Okay.
this one.
Yep.
I just think that they might be getting over the hump. I think they might be getting over the hump, and we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
If
Definitely a tough game to call. I do picks of the week every week, and this is one game I would avoid with that. I pick 5 games from the week ahead that I choose to actually try and pick a winner for. This would be a matchup that I'm like, I'll pick a different game to try and call than this one. It's
I
gonna
would
be
stay away from this one too.
it's gonna be a heck of a matchup, but
It's going to be 5-4, and then it's going to be 4-4, and it's going to go to like 2 overtimes. Right?
Go into overtime and then the shootout, and it ends up 5-4. It's going to be a heck of a hockey game for sure. And Tampa starts their season on opening night as well. They get to raise the banner against the Chicago Blackhawks. And now these two teams met in the 2015 Stanley Cup Final. Now, normally, these two teams would not be playing on opening night, and this was normally a cross-conference matchup with Chicago in the West and Tampa in the East.
Not anymore.
But not anymore with the realignment this year. These are both Central Division teams now.
Yeah.
So Tampa gets started against the Blackhawks, and they get to raise the banner opening night. That'll be a fun one.
Especially with Stamkos in the lineup.
Stammer being ready to go and getting your captain back.
Yeah. Look, Chicago kind of drew the short straw here a little bit on this one.
Yeah,
Not just with this game, but I think with being in this division. And the fact that they basically came out and said they were rebuilding.
Oh, they're rebuilding now. That's for
Okay,
sure.
so guess
They're
what?
rebuilding now. No
This
Kirby
is kind of a
Doc, no
no-brainer.
Jonathan Taves, no goaltending whatsoever to speak
Uh,
of.
no, exactly. And Taves, exactly what you said, Taves being out for
Yeah,
who knows how long,
indefinitely. We have no
right?
idea.
We don't know. So, uh, what do you think, John? Who you going on this one?
I'm going with the Tampa Bay Lightning on
Oh
this one.
yeah. I think Tampa Bay.
This probably will be a game that I pick in my picks of the weekend.
That would be
And it's
There
going
you
to be the
go.
Tampa Bay Lightning for
4 to
sure.
1, 5 to 1, something like that, maybe.
Yeah. So the late game out in Canada, another a Western Canadian rivalry. Two teams normally in the Pacific Division, now in the North Division, obviously. Edmonton and Vancouver. I was kind of hoping they'd start with Edmonton and Calgary night one and just get us off rocking and rolling right away. But we get Edmonton and Vancouver night one. A lot of offense in that game for sure. A lot of high-powered offense in that game. I feel like that's going to be a very fast-paced, exciting, up and down hockey to
Okay,
watch.
there you go. That's going to be one of the ones to watch.
Yeah, that's going to be a really exciting game.
A really exciting game because you're going to see a lot of really good plays. You're going to see some good passing. I think you're going to see some good hard checking.
Oh yeah. Western
you know,
Canadian teams never have a problem with that.
Okay, so this is going to be the Philadelphia Pittsburgh game and the Vancouver Edmonton, or if it was Edmonton and Calgary, were the games that I would circle on opening night matchup.
Yeah, I was hoping for Edmonton Calgary, but I'm fine with Vancouver and Edmonton.
Yeah, we'll take that. I think I do agree though. I think that's going to be it might even be one of those high scoring games too.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
Definitely the
mean?
chance to.
Yeah, there's
Especially
a lot of offense
opening
going on there.
night. Goaltenders, sometimes aren't, especially with no preseason games.
Yeah.
You can't get locked in as a goaltender in practice the way that you can with game action in front of you. So I think it's going to be an adjustment the first couple weeks of the season just for the goalies to get mentally locked in and used to game action and everything going on and happening so quickly.
Exactly.
So I think we certainly could see some high-scoring games early in the season, and this is certainly a candidate for a high-scoring game potentially.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a really great point too, because you're right. It takes those goalies a little bit more time, especially now that there's no preseason.
Mm-hmm.
So but they don't get a chance to get in that mid-season form.
Yeah.
By the time that first game rolls around, they haven't. And you can scrimmage all you want.
It doesn't replicate a real game.
Right.
It's
not the same speed. It's not the same situation. You can act like it is, but in reality, it's not.
It's not. It just isn't.
Right.
At any level.
Exactly. So what do you think? Who do you like?
I'm going to take Vancouver in that one.
Right.
I'm very high on Vancouver this year. My prediction video for the season hasn't come out yet, but when it does, you'll see just how high on Vancouver I am this year. But I'm going to go with the Canucks in that one.
You know what? I like what they've done in the off season so far, and I've like how they've been on the come in the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I'm going to agree with you on that one.
All right, going with it.
Yeah, I like Vancouver over Edmonton on this.
Okay.
Look, I'm not saying that Edmonton's not going to be a good team, and they're not going to be there.
I think they are. I think Edmonton's a good team for sure.
Yeah. But I just think that Vancouver's going to be a little bit more for them for opening night.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree with you on that one. And that brings us to our last game, a West Division matchup. Two teams that normally play in the Central but got moved to the West with the realignment this year. The top two teams in the Western Conference last year, the St. Louis Blues and the Colorado Avalanche. So the division is different, but the matchup is the same. And these two teams are going to be going at it. I think they're going to be two of the best teams in that division this year, without a doubt. Along with Vegas, will certainly have something to say about that.
Agreed.
But these two teams are going to be up there when it comes to the standings. And, man, what a matchup for opening night to get a rivalry like Blues and Avalanche going.
Wow. I mean, St. Louis is 3 years removed from the Cup, right?
2
years.
2 years removed.
2 years removed from the Cup.
Yep.
Okay. They've had some good folks come back. They've re-signed some other players. in St. Louis there for a little bit, and I like what they've done in the offseason. Colorado, look, I had Colorado and Dallas picked last year. I couldn't decide if I could pick between Colorado's offense and Dallas's whatever they were doing down there in Dallas. Okay.
Yep.
I don't know
Shutdown
what it was.
defensive style that they completely flipped around
Yeah.
in the playoffs.
Right.
It was so weird.
So I picked either Dallas or Colorado, right, as to be my sleeper team to make it to the Cup.
Yep.
So I couldn't lose because Dallas and Colorado played each other in the playoffs,
the
and
second
so
round,
Dallas
yes.
won. So either way, I win.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. Okay. So Colorado, I think, is going to be a little better this year.
Oh,
I think they're going to be a
I'm big
little
on
better.
Colorado.
Yeah.
I have Colorado being the best team in the league this year, and I have them as my preseason Stanley Cup pick. I'm all over.
I guess we don't need to guess who you're going to pick for this one.
I'm all over the Avalanche this season.
I like
to
what
be
they
one
did.
Of the absolute
I really
best
do.
teams in the league.
Yeah, I'm with you. And with Joe Sakic as their GM,
he's just done such a fantastic job.
Everything that he does is team friendly.
Mm-hmm.
All the deals, right? He takes care of his players. He takes care of his vets. He makes sure that I'm going to have to agree with you on that. I will say that I'll agree with you on that. I like St. Louis and I like Craig Berube.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I think that Binnington can come back from a down year. Okay, because once you win a Stanley Cup, coming back that next year, it's not quite the same.
The hangover is there. The cup hangover is there.
Exactly. So I think Binnington's going to have a resurgence this year for St. Louis. I think St. Louis is still going to be a playoff team.
Yep.
Okay, I still think they're going to be part of the playoffs. Yep. But I'm agreeing with you this again. I really like what Colorado did. I could see them winning the West.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And
it's either them or Vegas.
I personally think Colorado's better than Vegas because Colorado's deeper down the middle.
I agree, but it's going to be between Vegas, Colorado, and St. Louis, I think.
Yeah, those are your top three teams without a doubt.
Right.
Without a doubt.
Right.
Those are your top three teams in that division. And
yeah.
Has Joe Sakic lost a trade in his yet for the Avalanche?
I don't think so.
Everything this guy does is genius. He steals Brandon Saad from Chicago.
I was just going to say, yeah.
Just literally just takes him away from Chicago, gives up a third pair defenseman for Brandon freaking Saad. And then he makes the Devon Taves trade, which he gives up a couple of second-round picks and brings in a top four defenseman who on that team probably isn't even going to play top four because they're so deep already on the back end. Or maybe they move Ryan Graves down. I don't know what they're going to do, but I mean, Devon Taves is a great addition, and you didn't even have to give up a player off the roster. You just gave up a couple second-round picks that, in all likelihood, with how good the Avalanche are going to be late second-round picks. So those are crapshoot picks to begin with.
Well, second-round picks tend to be a little bit more coveted by other teams.
The chances
that tends to be more of the trade bait. Where if you're looking for a trade, you're like, we'll take a second-round pick. Especially depending on if it's a higher second-round pick.
Yeah, high second-round picks are almost as good as late first-round picks.
Right.
But statistically, second-round picks don't make full-time careers in the NHL nearly as much as first-round picks do.
Obviously, yeah. Right.
So,
but
to not have to give up
a second-round pick is better than a third, fourth, fifth, or
absolutely,
later.
Absolutely. The deeper you go into the draft, your chances of getting an actual NHL player get very, very thin when you get really beyond the third round.
Yeah.
When you're in 4, 5, 6, and 7, it is
hard to find NHLers there.
You hit a home run if you get a guy that even really plays 100 games in the NHL. So
wow, there you go.
That's why late round guys that become stars like Jamie Benn or like Joe Pavelski, who was picked in the 7th round. Those guys are just, absolute grand slams because they're so few and far between.
Makes sense. And then when you look at guys like, Heischer and Hughes and those guys were first round draft picks and they're kind of stumbling a little bit.
Yeah.
They're not quite having that, expected career right off the bat. Not taking away anything from them.
No, and I think in a lot of those situations, the expectations are just too high to begin with because
Yeah.
we've seen what Connor McDavid was able to do as soon as he entered the league. We saw
Yeah.
what Austin Matthews was able to do as soon
Jack
as he
Eichel.
entered the league.
Yeah.
And the reality is that not every player, even top 5 picks, not every player is going to be that and be
Right.
able to pull that off at 18 or 19 years old. So I think the expectations for some of these early picks need to be tempered back a little bit and realize that the word development still exists and that sometimes it takes 2 to 3 years of further development before they're ready to really make a big impact and be a star at the NHL
Yeah.
level.
Yeah. Totally agree. Totally agree. So there you have it, folks. Our opening night matchup. Did we agree on Pittsburgh and Philly?
Yeah, I'm going Philly in that one.
Yeah, we're going to Philly, right? Montreal and Toronto. I
I
picked
didn't
Toronto.
want to
You
call
picked.
this one. I'm going to go Montreal. I'm going to go
All right. All right.
Montreal.
All right. Wait. Hold on. I gotta mark these down, man. Because if I don't, I will forget.
I
Right?
want to be different on at least one, so.
Oh, we okay. All right. Yeah. Because we both picked Philly.
We both went with Philly.
Right? And then in this one here, John goes with Montreal,
Yep.
right? And then Steele goes with Toronto.
Okay.
Okay, and then Chicago and Tampa Bay.
That's an easy Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay, I believe.
I'll tell you what, though. I'll tell you what. If Chicago wins that first game, there are going to be some people who put some coin on that game who are very, very happy. Because I have a feeling, that the
odds are pretty big on that one.
The odds for Chicago there are going to be pretty big. So there's some coin to be made if Chicago happens to pull off that upset.
You think maybe?
Yeah, for sure. But I'm going to go Tampa. I think the Lightning are just such a good team, and Chicago had the Lightning offense against Malcolm Subban in goal. I think that's all you need to know right there.
Okay, all right, moving
Tampa
on.
Tampa it is. Vancouver, Edmonton. I'm going Canucks.
Okay, and I also agreed with you on this one.
Yeah, we did agree on that
one. Even though I think this is probably going to be one of those games that I think is going to go into overtime, and we're going to get a shootout. Okay, but I think Vancouver's going to take it.
A nice 6-5 shootout victory.
Yeah, there you go. Something like that. Going to be a lot of offense, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay. We both agree that Colorado is going to take this. I think St. Louis is a good enough team, and I think they're going to be a playoff team, but I do think that Colorado is going to win this one.
Yeah, I'll take Colorado opening night. I'm just so high on the Avs this year.
Okay, so the only one we disagreed on.
The only one we disagreed was the Montreal-Toronto matchup, and that game's a complete coin flip to me. But I wanted to be different, and I'll go with the Canadians, and you can go with the Leafs.
Well, if you would have picked Toronto, I would have picked Montreal.
Yeah, so we'll go different on that one. Perfect. So we got our opening night. Previews here, and that brings us to a new segment to the show that I definitely am going to be trying to bring back every week, and it's called Top Shelf, which is basically our power rankings for the league, our top 5 teams, and who's the top shelf of the NHL right now. And these are obviously preseason power rankings because nobody has played a game yet. So I'll let you go first, Steele. Who are your top 5 teams heading into the year?
All right. I had to put a lot of thought into this because like I said earlier in the show, I didn't want to try to take some of the injuries into consideration because I thought that Barzal would be back. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then I think that although Dallas is going to start without Sagan and they might potentially starting without Hudobin, I still think that they're going to be okay. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I tried to not take those types of things into consideration, and I tried to just take it as it's a preseason. This is my gut feelings on the top teams, right?
Yep.
Okay, so Here we go. All right, are you ready?
Yes.
Do you want the bottom one or do you want the top one?
Start at 5 and we'll work our way to 1.
All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh wait, I have 6.
Hey, delete that. Whoever's at the bottom. See you later. You're not top 5 material yet. These will change every week. I'm sure these are going to change
Yeah,
every
yeah.
week. Someone will be
Okay.
moving in and out.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, then let me hold on. Let me. All right. I gotta do some rearranging here now. And I gotta hold on. Yeah, I still have to do one more rearrange. And we're almost there. Okay, my bottom team.
Hmm.
Okay,
Number
my bottom
5.
team. Top five.
Yep.
Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bottom team to me right now is Boston.
All right. So you have Boston in the top 5 at number 5.
At number 5, Boston,
Okay.
number 5.
Yep.
Okay. I have Dallas
Okay.
at number
Number
4.
number 4. They were in the Cup Finals last year.
Right?
Yep.
Philadelphia,
3.
3.
Okay.
Okay. Now, this is where I had a hard time.
Yep.
Okay, because for me, this is a toss up between Tampa Bay and Colorado.
Okay.
Okay, I put Tampa Bay second, Colorado first.
Okay.
Okay, so there you have it. So I got Colorado number 1, I
Mm-hmm.
got Tampa Bay number 2, Dallas number 3, Philly number 4, and Boston number 5, and then an
Okay.
honorable mention, Islanders.
Okay. Yep.
So that's my top 5 with an honorable mention.
Okay. Um. All right. Ready for? I will go with mine here. Number 5. I have the Vegas Golden Knights. Now I
Ooh.
do have questions.
Ooh.
I do have questions about their forward depth, especially down the middle. But with
Yeah.
Fleury and Leonard in net and Pietrangelo on that back end, I just think they're going to be so good defensively that they're going to win. I mean, they're going to be right up there in that West Division, competing for the
Have to agree.
division lead.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I have to agree.
they're going to be so good defensively that they're going to win with defensive hockey.
And I think with Leonard and Fleury, I think that right there is the best goaltending tandem.
That tandem's unreal.
Right.
Just, I mean,
Okay.
Leonard's been one of the best goaltenders in the league for the past like 2 or 3 years,
Yep.
right up there with the best of the best.
Yep. Yep. Couldn't agree with you more. All right. So you got Vancouver here at number 5,
No, Vegas.
or Vegas. I'm sorry,
Vegas at
Vegas at
5.
number 5.
Number 4, the Philadelphia Flyers.
Okay. Okay.
Philadelphia is my pick to win the East Division.
Yeah, I could see that.
I think Philadelphia is in really good shape. I think they had a great year last year. They had very tough series against the Islanders in the second round, but man, that was a hard fought series from both sides, and fantastic hockey. And
Yeah,
I
but
think
that was coming off of a hard series though from against Montreal
against
as well too.
Montreal, Philadelphia is better this year than they were last year.
I agree.
Philadelphia, and you've got Carter Hart, another year older, another year more developed, and another year better. And I'm telling you, everyone right now, Carter Hart will win at least one, probably multiple Vezina trophies in his career. He is going to be a superstar goalie.
Agreed. Agreed.
Carter
Because
Hart is,
he showed his medal in the playoffs.
yes, he is going to be a superstar goalie. And
So
I
we
think
both have Philly at 4.
yeah, he's continuing to get better. Number 3.
All right.
The Dallas Stars.
Okay.
I mean, these are preseason rankings. Obviously, they've had some, having Sagan out is going to hurt. We don't know what's going on with their goaltending right now, with Hudobin having immigration issues, and we know
Right.
Bishop's out. But you can't not have a team that was in the Stanley Cup Finals last year not in your top 5. I
Agreed.
still think they may not be there after the first couple weeks of the season, but at least for now,
Yeah. Preseason.
Dallas has got to be in the top 5. So I have
Yeah.
Dallas at 3. At number 2, I have the Colorado Avalanche.
Okay. Okay. So we flipped on that,
I have the
right? So
Colorado Avalanche at number 2, and
yeah.
that obviously leaves the Tampa Bay Lightning at number 1. And the Tampa Bay Lightning, I just they won the cup last year. I can't not have them at 1 to start the season the next year. That
Especially
I
on paper right now.
Yeah, and they brought back, most of their team. I mean, pretty much
Sorelli, they brought back, and I mean, what?
Sorelli's back, Sergachev's back, Chernak is back, Stamkos is back.
Stamkos is
Obviously,
back.
Kucherov's out, but you give and you take there. You lose Kucherov, you get Stamkos back healthy, and Stamkos so far has had sounds like he's been good in camp and he's 100% and he's ready to go. So that kind of mitigates a little bit the loss of Kucherov. You played through the almost entire playoffs last year without Steven Stamkos, with the exception of
Right.
that 2 minutes and 46 seconds, and the goalie scored. You were able to win the cup without Steven Stamkos. Why can't you be a great regular season team without Nikita Kucherov when you still have so much more talent around there with that team?
Right. But I think we talked about this earlier, that the fact that they had Kucherov in with Stamkos being out, the Stamkos still played 95% of the regular season. He just missed all of the
Yeah, he missed.
round robin and the playoffs and all that other stuff. And then the last 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah, he missed the end of the regular season and pretty much the entire postseason. But they did
Right.
The first part of the regular season. They all had they had
Yeah. Yeah.
Stammer there with Kucherov, and they were
Right.
fairly healthy. But there's just so much talent there. I mean, Braden Point is turning into an absolute superstar.
Right. And he
They're-
played lights out.
He was
played lights
unbelievable
out.
in the playoffs. Their defense is incredibly good, and they have the best goalie in the league. They have the best goalie in the league in net in Andrei Vasilevsky, and he's a guy that I look to as being a top 3 goaltender for the past probably 3 seasons, and he's
Yeah.
ranked number 1 in my book right now is Andrei
Yeah.
Vasilevsky in net.
He definitely won some games for them in the playoffs.
Yeah, he's a great goaltender. And
Exactly.
obviously, it helps to have a team as good as Tampa in front of you, but man, he makes the saves and he gets the wins.
Exactly. And that's all that matters, as long as he's getting the saves and the wins. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So you have number 1, Tampa Bay, number 2, Colorado, number 3, Dallas, number 4, Philadelphia, and number 5, the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yes, and if I throw in an honorable mention there, Boston's number 6. I just have Boston right on the outside. Boston's defense is going to be a bit of I don't want to say a circus. That's too strong. It's going to be in a bit of an adventure.
That's a good word.
Boston's defense is going to be a bit of an adventure to start the season. That's why I don't have them in the top 5. They're also missing Pastrnak to start the year, which certainly knocks Boston down a little bit.
Yeah.
I still think Boston's going to be a very good team. I think they're a playoff team, but I think at least to start, I have them down a peg a little bit because of what they've lost mostly on the back end.
Okay. So
yeah, they're right there at 6. They're right there at 6.
Yeah, these are all subject to change, and these are all preseason.
Yeah, these are preseason rankings that will be completely changed. Well, maybe not completely changed, but there certainly will be differences come the next time we do this show.
Exactly, for sure. So this brings us to that. I think that's a great. I like this segment, man.
Yeah,
I want to keep doing this.
I'll do top shelf every week.
Yeah, man, I like that. And speaking of some top shelf, how about if we talk about some of the prospects that have been playing in the World Juniors?
Time for some prospect watch. Absolutely. I love this segment as well.
Right? Do you like that? We'll go right from
top shelf to prospect watch.
To top prospect watch. Hey, how you doing? So, we each picked a player that we felt was a significant player during the World Juniors. And for the team that they were drafted from or whatever, right? And so now, who was your player? Who was your top prospect watch for this segment?
For this week, the guy I want to talk about's name is Trevor Zegras.
Woo!
Trevor Zegras, what a tournament in the World Juniors. So, excuse me, Zegras was drafted 9th overall in 2019 by the Anaheim Ducks, and he is certainly, I believe, Anaheim's top prospect. You could maybe say Jamie Drysdale, because Drysdale's right there as well.
Yeah.
But Zegras is certainly their top forward prospect, and I think very close to making a significant impact at the NHL level. So if we look at what Zegras just has done in the World Juniors, 7 games played, 7 goals, 11 assists for 18 points in 7 games at the World Juniors, while bring home a gold, helping or really being a driving force behind bringing home a gold medal for Team USA.
Yeah.
And I got a great chance to see Trevor Zegras at Boston University from Massachusetts. I watch a lot of college hockey, especially Hockey East. I actually got to see Trevor Zegras play live against Providence College
Oh,
last
wow. There you
season.
go.
And I can tell you this, Trevor Zegras was the best player on the ice out of anybody. He was the
He
best player on the ice.
he's got the speed. He's got the
He,
hands.
the hands are
Oh, oh,
unbelievable
oh my.
on this kid.
So he was what, second or third in the record books for most points?
He had to be up there. I don't have the
He
exact
has to be
numbers
up
in
there
front of
with
me, but he
18.
18 points in 7 games has got to be up there. And then he was over a point per game as a freshman at Boston University last year. He played 33 games. He had 11 goals, 25 assists for 36 points in 33
Wow.
games.
Wow.
As a freshman, freshmen
Yeah.
usually don't even play big minutes, and
No.
he was the star of the forward group for Boston University last year. This kid's going to be unbelievable for the Anaheim Ducks. And one of the biggest things that I noticed with him in World Juniors that I was a little taken aback by was the goal scoring. 7
Yeah.
goals in 7 games. I was not expecting that because I've looked at Zegras as more of a setup man and a playmaker over the past few years. Seeing him come up and seeing him play at BU. Because he only had 11 goals in 33 games at Boston University, but he had 25 assists, and he was always distributing the puck. He was always passing, and he was a dynamic playmaker, but I didn't know he had the level of goal scoring in him that he showed at the World Juniors. And if he can translate that to the NHL and have the playmaking ability that we know he has with the goal scoring ability that he just showed, he is going to be a superstar player for the Anaheim Ducks.
Exactly. And see, I think it was because he played on a line with the United States team that fed him the puck.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, instead of it being the other way around,
Yep.
where the offense flowed through him, where he was the one doing more of the shooting and he was the one taking more of the shots and getting the goals instead of setting other people up.
Yes.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And
absolutely.
he was one of the most noticeable players out there in every single game that he was in.
Absolutely. And he was
Okay.
the same way at Boston University. He was the star player. He was the big guy on the ice in every game that he played in for the most part.
There you go. Do you think he's going to get an invite? Do you think he's at camp at Anaheim? Is he what? How's that going to fly with him?
I mean, I think he's. I would give him a look for the NHL this year. I think. I don't know. I get the feeling, especially with Anaheim being in rebuild mode and kind of being a little bit slower with their development. I don't think they're going to rush anybody to the NHL level in Anaheim because they know that they're not there right now. So I think you might see him maybe not as much this year and maybe next season when he gets a full camp and a full
Is he
preseason.
going back to college?
No, he cannot go back to
Okay,
college
so then he's going to
because
play for the AHL team.
he signed his ELC, so he cannot
All
go
right.
back to college. The other option would be for him to play in the AHL,
Okay.
which I think there's a chance does happen. He's either going to end up in the AHL or he's going to end up playing for Anaheim. I think it'd be a waste to put him on the taxi squad because he would never, not
He'd
enough
never really
playing.
play.
That would
Yeah.
stunt your development right there. You
Agreed.
wouldn't do that. So,
Yeah. Agreed.
I think there's certainly a chance that we see him in the NHL this year. I think he's going to be more ready if they wait until next season. But when he is ready, he is going to make an impact.
I agree. He made an impact just on the USA team and then every game that they played. And,
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of the USA team, my prospect watch
Mm-hmm.
is the Florida Panthers prospect, Spencer Knight.
So good.
Okay, right.
Another Hockey East player at Boston College. I get
You
to see him on a regular basis.
See, it's like I know who I'm going to be doing the show with because I picked a guy from Boston College. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I would think, well, wait a minute, he would probably have seen him. No, but he played lights out.
Unbelievable.
He had 3 shutouts in the World Juniors. He played 6 games for 163 goals against and a .940 save percentage. What? He was 5-1-0 in the World Juniors. I mean,
Yep.
the stinker game was the Russia game.
The first
right?
game, you have the nerves, you have the first game
Right?
jitters. You're not used to that stage. As soon as he got past that first game, he was lights out.
The gold medal game, shutout.
Yep.
2-0. That was his third shutout of the tournament.
Yeah.
Uh,
He
I
was
don't.
unreal.
Now, even when he played for Boston College,
Very
he played
good.
for 4 games, right? He had a 1.5 GAA
Yep.
and a 9.55 save percentage, 2 shutouts, and 4-0.
Yep.
Um,
The kid's a shutdown goaltender.
Boy, can we call you? I know a few teams that would like to call this guy right now.
He's Florida Panthers.
Right?
He's Florida Panthers
Right? So
prospect now.
that's gonna push Bob.
Well,
That's gonna push Bob.
It is, because that makes the whole Bobrovsky contract and that whole situation even more interesting. And obviously, Knight is not NHL ready now, and goaltenders need time to develop. But
Right.
Bobrovsky's on year 2 of a 7-year deal. I
2
mean,
years.
Florida needs Bobrovsky now, but 4 years from now, when he still has 2 years on that contract, and they're paying him $10 million a year, they're not going to need Bobrovsky 4 years from now.
No, they're not.
Because Spencer
No,
Knight is going to be there.
Oh yeah,
and
he's
Spencer
gonna be
Knight,
there in
I
2.
think, will be the starting goaltender for that team.
I think he's going to be there in 2. And then I'm going to throw in an added bonus, right? Because the Canadian goalie,
Devin Levi.
Right?
Also Florida property.
Oh, thank you.
Unreal.
Okay. So it doesn't matter. It's either one or the other. Pick one.
Yep.
Honestly, I'd much rather have Knight, to be honest with you. I think he's a better goalie all the way around.
I mean, I haven't seen as much of Devin Levi, and he might be a great goaltender. I know he played very well for Canada.
Yeah.
But I've seen Spencer Knight in college. I've seen him at the junior. I've seen him consistently in college. Like, he is lights out. He's got to be one of the top goaltending prospects that you can even think of in the NHL. Kid's gonna be unreal.
Yeah. I agree. Couldn't agree with you more. I really liked the way he played in the United States team by playing 228 minutes of shutout hockey. I mean, that is unheard of. Okay, for one, and then the gold medal game with the shutout. Okay, and they were outshot in the third period, and then for the whole game, because in the last 5 minutes of the game is when they pulled the goalie.
Yeah.
So for most of the whole, 5 minutes, the last 5 minutes of the period, it was 6-on-5.
Yeah.
I mean, he was getting peppered, and he was just like save, and then he would swing his stick and the puck would go flying. He'd swing his blocker and the puck would go flying. I was like, all right, this guy's pretty good.
And he looks like a big game goalie too, which you don't always see. Sometimes goaltenders are really, really good and they put up great numbers, but then you get into crunch time and you get into those big games, the Game 7 type situations, the gold medal game situations, and they start to crumble a little bit. Spencer Knight, from what I've seen, looks like a big game goalie where he's going to rise to the occasion and play well at those big moments.
Agreed. And that's very hard and few and far between to find goalies like that at that age.
And that's something you can't teach either. That's completely a mental thing within that player's psyche and how they are as a player.
I couldn't agree with you more. Boy, I'll tell you what, we picked 2 really good. I mean, really good.
Really good Team USA players who I think are going to have great NHL careers.
Agreed.
And we've gone a little over our 2-hour time slot here, but there is one last thing I want to talk about because this isn't actually TV, and we're not completely bound to time slots here. We're having fun.
Exactly.
We're having fun. One last thing I want to talk about, and it was just a simple question. What are you most excited about this season? And I want it from a league-wide perspective. Obviously, you're a Flyers fan, and you could say, Carter Hart. But from a league-wide perspective, what are you most excited about with the NHL this season?
I'm excited about the fact that it's going to be a sprint to the end. It's a shortened season. It's a short camp. No preseason games, so there's no ramp up. There's no, getting into your groove. There's no 6, 3, 4 weeks or whatever to get and started and whatever. I also think too that one of the major issues league wide is teams that have had turnover,
Mm-hmm.
coaches, players, a lot of turnover. I think those first 10 or 15 games are going to be very, very, very important.
Yep.
And with what we spoke about earlier, with each game being a 4-point swing,
Yeah.
you can't afford to go out and be 3-7 in those first 10 games. You can't afford to be, 6-12 or whatever in the first 15 games. You can't. You got to have a winning record coming out of the gates.
Absolutely.
Okay, and teams that have had a lot of turnover, whether it be coaches or players, I think are going to struggle coming out of the gates, and I think that's going to be a major issue all the way league wide.
Yeah, and I completely agree about you've got to you can't take a couple weeks off. You can't take games off with this schedule and with only having a 56 game season. And in a normal year, if you get off to a slow start and you have a bad October, you have plenty of time to make up for it the rest of the
Exactly.
way. This year, if you have a bad month, you tank your whole season.
Yeah, you're
You
done.
can tank your whole season in a 10 to 15 game stretch this year if you have a bad, 3 to 4 weeks. So every game is going to be so important, and especially with them all being in division. I mean, you're looking at 4 point night in and night out, because not only do you have the 2 points on the line, but you're also taking those 2 points away from a divisional opponent, like we talked about earlier in the show. Every game is going to mean so much this year, and definitely something to look forward to with the league.
So now that we've covered what my big, major, most exciting story of is for the season league wide,
Mm-hmm.
and we know that you are a huge Boston fan, right?
Yep.
Okay. So what are you most excited about for this season league wide?
The schedule. All of the
Yeah.
games being within division. I've been a big proponent of more divisional play to begin with, even in a regular season. I think it's an absolute crime that the Bruins only play Toronto 4 times a year rather
Yeah.
than 6 or 7. I think it's an absolute crime that the Bruins only play Montreal 4 times a year instead of 6 or 7. The fact that Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and all of these rivalry games, the Islanders and Rangers, they should be playing more than 4 times a season in a regular year. Under a normal NHL schedule, you play your divisional opponents 4 times, you
Yep.
play your conference opponents who are not in your division 3 times,
3 times.
and then you play cross-conference opponents twice.
Twice.
Get
A
rid
home
of
and
the
home.
get rid of the twice for the cross-conference opponents, because I don't need the Bruins to play Anaheim twice. I don't need the Bruins to play LA twice.
Once.
There's no rivalry there. There's no added
Yeah.
anything to those games. A lot of
Yeah.
times they're really boring games. I'd
Yeah.
much rather see Boston get an extra game or two against rivals like Toronto and Montreal and Buffalo than them playing cross-conference games. And I think think of the Flyers. How are Flyers games against the Sharks compared to Flyers games against the Rangers? Because I know I'd much rather see the Flyers playing the Rangers or the Islanders than them playing against the Sharks or the Flames or
If we
something
play
like
against the
that.
Sharks and we lose,
It doesn't mean much.
right. But if we play against Boston and we lose, that means a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, that has a lot more meaning.
I've been a huge proponent of more divisional play within your division, and now we're getting a whole season of nothing but
Yeah, there you go.
divisional
So
play.
you got your wish.
This is a dream season for me. And the other thing that I really like schedule-wise that I want to touch on is the playing sets of games against the same team rather than just
I like
going
that
to
too.
Toronto, going to Ottawa, playing them once, going to Montreal, playing them once, then coming back. And I like it's baseball like, where you play a series 2 to 3 games against the team, and then you ship off to another city and play 2 or 3 against another team. That's something I would love to see the NHL even try to incorporate more of in a normal season, even not in a COVID season. In a normal season, I'd love to see a set against
divisional teams or
against a
divisional
divisional
rivals.
team. Like when the Flyers play the Penguins, I'd love to see them play 2 or 3 in a row against each other in a normal year, rather than playing the Penguins once and then not seeing them again for 2 months, and then playing them once in 2 months later, and then playing them once next month. You're gonna get so much more. You're going to get so much more of a rivalry feel when these teams are playing each other multiple games in a row. And it's going to have a mini playoff series feel to it. I think when you see the same team night in and night out, you're going to ramp up those rivalries even quicker, and it's going to be even more exciting, physical, fun hockey to watch.
And especially if you have a team that's a rivalry and there's bad blood already to begin with, and you're skating up against them guys night in and night out for 2 or 3 nights, I guarantee you that second night, you're not going to be so forgiving.
Exactly. Well, Imagine this. You've got the Flyers and the Islanders, let's say, because they played in the playoffs last year, and that was a physical series between those two teams. So you have a division rivalry there. You have a recent playoff series that was a very physical series that already has the blood boiling between these two teams. And now let's say in the first game of a 2-game set, in the first game, let's say one of the Flyers players, let's say Travis Konechny, starts to get under the skin of a star player for the Islanders, maybe like a Anders Lee or someone like that. And really,
Travis Konechny would never do anything like that.
TK gives him a little shot after the whistle or a slash on the knee or something like that. So then Matt Martin is not happy with the Philadelphia Flyers. So Matt Martin says, okay, if you're going to do that to our captain, then next time Claude Giroux's down in the corner, I'm going to run him through the glass. So now you have these teams. Now the blood's boiling. You've got line brawl potential here. And this is just the first game. What do you think is going to happen when these two teams play again the next night?
The next night.
Next night when they play again, you're going to have all the big boys in the lineup for that game. Like, that is going to breed the kind of hockey that I want to see. It's going to be rivalry, physical, angry hockey, the way it's supposed to be, and it's going to be so exciting to watch.
I can't wait, man. I really can't wait. We're very overly excited about the fact that we're going to get hockey back, for one. For two, the fact that they've given us such a plethora of games to watch.
Let's go.
And not just the fact that there's a lot of them, but there's quality. There's good games.
There's good games.
I mean, good games, right? Not just these fluff games. Look, I'm with you on the whole, more of the divisional rivalry games. And I don't care about the fluff games as much. I don't need to see the Sharks. I don't need to see Arizona.
Yeah.
I don't need to see. You're right.
Does it get any more brutal to watch than the Arizona Coyotes?
Okay, right. I don't need to see the Kings twice.
Nope.
I don't need to see the Ducks twice.
Cut it back to one cross-conference game and add more divisional games. That's my opinion.
Right, but see, they did that over the last couple of years so that every team could visit every market.
Yeah, they want every team in every building at least once a year, and I'm not a fan. I'd rather have the divisional games because I think they're better.
Yeah, I'm with you, because if you remove those extra games against, you only play one game against Anaheim, one game against Arizona, one game against LA, one game against San Jose.
If the Bruins don't go to Anaheim one season, that's fine. Anaheim can come. They can alternate. One season it's in Boston, the next season it's in Anaheim.
Yeah, I'm with you on that too. That's what the NFL does. They rotate around the divisions that you play, right? So you always play your division rivals twice, and then they rotate.
The other teams rotate.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, and they rotate them around every year, so you always play the same division. Okay, for that same year, you play everybody in that division. So like this year, they played against the Eagles, Washington, Dallas, and whoever's in that division, the Giants, right? So that was part of the schedule. So next year will be another division that'll be part of the schedule.
It might be the NFC West,
right? Yeah, I guarantee you it's going to be, right?
Yeah.
So that's just how it goes in the NFL. But with the NHL, I do agree. I would like to see more of the interdivisional games, and not just interdivisional games, but more of the interconference games too. Okay, because I don't want to play Anaheim. I would much rather be playing Carolina
Yeah.
or Tampa Bay or somebody on in the Metropolitan or somebody in the Eastern Conference that those points are going to mean more to me than if I go play a
Yeah.
team out west or in the Western Conference, because none of those points really mean. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's good if you can go out there and win those games and
Yep.
get those free points.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. But if you can't, then that's points that you're not going to get come when you come to play your divisions at home, you know.
Yeah, and the only thing about if they tried to, they can only add so many more interdivisional games because there is an 82 game limit, and it would be tough to add interdivisional and interconference teams without cutting out the other conference completely. And while I wouldn't necessarily be completely opposed to that, I think the league would, and I just think that's something unreal. Like that's an unrealistic thing to ask. I think maybe cutting down to only one cross conference, playing cross conference teams only once is something the league would consider. Cutting out the other conference altogether in a normal season, I don't
Yeah.
think the league would even consider.
No,
I
I don't
think
think
they
they will either.
want they still want those matchups and those players at least going into those
Yeah, they
buildings.
want those cross market games. That's what they're
Yeah,
trying to do. You know,
but
they're trying to justify the market sharing, which okay,
yeah,
I'm okay with. I'm okay with because that makes it a little better then because now you got, the low end teams like Arizona are
mhm.
now going to host teams like Boston, Philadelphia, and the big name teams are going to be coming to Arizona. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
and
So that
yeah, and if when you have Austin Matthews coming home to Arizona where he grew up, that's going to be a big draw. I mean, the Coyotes' attendance is horrendous, but when Austin Matthews comes to town, that's going to be a
sell
big
out.
draw. When Sidney Crosby comes to town, when Claude Giroux comes to town, when Alex Ovechkin comes to town,
Sell out.
when these star players come
Yep.
to town, that's a draw.
Yep.
And I don't think the league, from a financial standpoint, it is not going to do away with that. But I am in favor of more divisional games. I'd love to see more of the teams that are real rivals playing against each other. And for this season, at least, we get nothing but divisional games, which I am personally really, really happy about.
There you go.
But
You're all good.
that's gonna bring us to the end of episode 2 of the Off the Wall Hockey Show. Man, what a night we had! I want to thank everyone for watching. I really appreciate everyone who's been able to catch this live, and I'm sure hopefully a good number of people will watch it after the fact as well. When they get the opportunity to. But this has been a phenomenal show, Steele. Thank you so much for being on
Oh
and
man.
putting this together. And thank
All
you so
time.
much for Steel Flyers, because we are both part of the Steel Flyers All Sports Network. This is a show along with the Steel Flyers All Sports Network,
Yeah,
and
one of our flagship
one
shows.
of our flagship shows here that we're going to be getting into doing on a very regular basis here now
Yep.
that the season is upon us. And
Woo-hoo.
you're definitely we got a whole bunch of other people involved in the Steel Flyers network as well, including Peyton on the radio, the Great Perlo Wisdom, Sports Fanatic News, um,
Joe Boric,
Joe Boric,
Lance Green, Flyers Nitty
yeah, Flyers
Gritty.
Nitty Gritty's in with us too now. Hockey Writers Inc. You and
Yeah,
Lance
man.
have a great show there. So you
Yeah.
guys are definitely going to want to check out www.steelflyers.com. There's going to be so much sports content coming your way, and we're doing our best to bring you the best stuff that we possibly can. So Steel, thank you so much. Great to have you here, and this was a fantastic show.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure, man. I can't wait till we do this again. These are some of the best kinds of things. This is what we're trying to do here at Steel Flyers. We're trying to bring you this kind of good quality information. You get to laugh a little bit, but then you also get to learn a little bit. We're
Mhm.
giving you the best information that we can based on all the information that we've gathered and all the research that we've done. We try to give you the truth in sports. Okay, that's what we're about, the truth in sports. We don't talk about rumors and we don't talk about hearsay or anything like that. We're giving you our best educated guess on everything that we've done and all the research that we've done. So this is what
Mhm.
we're all about. And man, I'll tell you what, John from Off the Wall Hockey is some of the best in the business. You got to check out his Boston show, with Black and Gold, man. That dropped what, yesterday, right?
Actually, this afternoon, just a
This
few hours
afternoon, right? The
ago.
new episode for that. Boy, you got to check that out. He's on there with his buddy, and them guys really know about Boston, and you got to check that out for sure. We're very grateful to have John from Off the Wall Hockey, part of steelflyers.com, and you can
Thank
check
you.
out all the off the wall hockey stuff at www.steelflyers.com/link/off the wall hockey, and you can get all the greatest right there.
Yes, so expect a lot more here from the Off the Wall Hockey Show as we get into the season. This is going to be a flagship program that we're doing on a weekly basis. So thank you guys all so much for watching. Really, really appreciate each and every one of you. Please, if you'd be kind enough to drop a like and hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new to the channel. Both of those things help out a lot. This was episode 2 of the Off the Wall Hockey Show, a hockey show for hockey fans. We really hope you enjoyed it. And that's going to do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much, and talk to you all soon.